Morning, everybody. Thank you so much. Welcome to day 3 of the mentorship with purpose, brought to you by Discovery. I'm looking forward to today's session. It's action-packed, and I hope that you have enjoyed the past 2 days, which was we had such very informative sessions and very insightful discussions. And today is no different. The theme for today is basically the digital migration. I'll unpack it before we get into the discussions. But I think as a start, let's just do a little poll, pretty much like we did at the beginning of yesterday with Timothy. Let's just do a poll just to get a sense of how you are doing, and from there we'll jump straight into it. Sfiso, let's start with the first question. So just take a few seconds or minutes just to complete the poll on your screen. You'll see the question. How is the organization leveraging technology and innovation to improve operations? So, choose all the options that apply. It's a multiple choice. So how is the organization leveraging on technology? So just complete that poll. Just take a minute just to go through that. It's just 2 questions, and from there we'll jump straight into today's session. So the next question that we're asking you to complete is, what limits your ability to leverage technology? Is it capital, skills? Is it tools? Is it management support, change management, or if there's any other reasons specified? Thank you. So my name is Rosh Mamabolo. I'll be your host for the next session. Quite an insightful session that I'm looking forward to. But what we have in store for today, basically our first session for today will be is titled Innovation and Technology in the Context of Product Development Masterclass, Leadership and Quality of Product and Service. And that will be hosted by Barry Swartzberg. So I'm looking forward to that masterclass. And thereafter, that should take us to about 11:10. And we'll then have the next session, Managing Remotely. That will be hosted by my colleague, Timothy Webster, and he's got the panel discussion with Nonkululeko Pitje and Gavin MacGregor. And Tim will also take us through the last session of today, which is shifting to digital at 12:30 until 10 minutes after 1. And we have Joe van Niekerk for that session. What we'll also do is we'll take a comfort break. We'll try and squeeze a 5-minute comfort break at the end of the first session, so that you can stretch your legs and take a smoke break and come back for the next session. So I'm looking forward to that. So our first session is with the one and only Barry Swartzberg. Barry is a graduate from the University of Witwatersrand with a BSc degree measuring in actuarial science and mathematical statistics. In 1990, he was admitted as a fellow of the Faculty of Actuaries, Edinburgh, and in 1993 as an associate of the Society of Actuarial Sciences in Chicago. Barry is the co-founder of Discovery Limited. He was instrumental in establishing Discovery Health's marketing, distribution, and operational functions. First as a chief marketing officer, and then as chief operations officer. He then served as CEO from 2000 to 2005, establishing the company's first low-income medical scheme and launching Discovery Health's administration services business for closed medical schemes. I can go on and on and on. By the time I finish reading Barry's resume, chances are we'll be done with this session. Barry, welcome. Thank you so much. Quite honored to have you in the session, and I'm looking forward to your masterclass.
Thank you very much, Rosh. It's great to be here today. Thankfully, you cut that CV short. I really do appreciate that part of it.
Awesome. So thanks, Barry. I mean, before we jump into your presentation, one of the questions that I've always asked myself is, how did Discovery start? I mean, just indulge us for a few minutes, if you can. How did you and Adrian back in the day decide we're going to do this thing? You know, what's the story behind Discovery?
So Adrian and myself were working at Liberty Life. I mean, Liberty is a very innovative and entrepreneurial business, still is today. And in those days, we were in charge of product development, developing new products, which for me is one of the essences of the business, of any business, is, you know, your product, your offering. And we were actually in charge of that department, working in that department at Liberty. And we developed a product called Medical Lifestyle, which was really, really successful and sold a significant amount for Liberty Life. And we thought we could do it on our own, you know, as opposed to doing it for Liberty. We could do something similar and create an iconic business on our own. And hence started the journey, you know, approaching Rand Merchant Bank. They were our initial backers and still today involved in the business. So 30 years later, they're still a shareholder. In fact, the majority shareholder today. So we've had a long relationship, not now with Rand Merchant Bank, but with the Rand Merchant Bank, what's called now Rand Merchant Insurance. So still the same individuals involved from then onwards. So it was because of our background, our educational background, our stuff that we learned at Liberty, and I suppose the confidence we had received building products at Liberty Life that gave us the confidence to try and do something on our own.
Was it a straight line type of a thing? I mean, we left Liberty, we started, and 30 years later, here we are. Was it that straight line?
I mean, Raj, for me, that's the enjoyment of startups. It's never a straight line.
Yes.
It's all over the place. I love that. The thinking on your feet, trying to get your business every night, thinking about it, every day thinking about how to operate, how to enhance your business, your sales, your branding, everything, all the aspects of the business. I love that part of the business, the startup phase. It is never, ever a straight line. In fact, it's very low initially, that line, bumpy all over the place. And at some point in time, you crack it. You know when it takes off, and then you'll get a bit of a bump in the business, but it's never a straight line, that's for sure.
Have you thought, maybe this is not working, where's my CV, let me go back at some point?
Absolutely. Many times we were at many difficult times. I don't think I'll ever reach for my CV, but we had many, many difficult times. I mean, that's you got to work through it, you know. I heard a saying the other day, good decisions come from experience, and experience comes from making bad decisions. we made our fair share of bad decisions.
All right. I mean, on the topic of mentorship, Barry, I mean, you mentioned on day one that you were fortunate to be mentored by Laurie Depenar. I mean, those are the legends as far as entrepreneurship in the country is concerned. How was it though? I mean, being in the same room with Laurie and JT Ferreira and Paul Harris, I mean, how was it at the time? I mean, you know, how significant a role was that in the life of Discovery?
It was very significant. Look, I mean, I didn't have, like formal mentorship with Laurie, but he was our chairman for 15 years, the first 15 years of our business. And I just saw how they all operated, with innovation and ethics and values and all those kinds of things, and make, for me, a success of a business. A business is not about just purely making money. That's not what it's about. It's about building something long-term that creates long-term value. That's what you want to create. It is, it's got a future. It's not about, immediacy of value, and just working with these guys with their value set and their ethics and the way they operate, and they listen to people, genuinely listen to anyone's input. And I mean, I really saw how they operated, and it really inspired me in my early part of my career on how to operate, how to, you're learning from sort of the masters and how they've done it, how they've achieved it. I don't know who they learned from, but I learned from them, and Adrian and Herschel Mayers and all these people surrounding me, my peers, I learned how they operate, and it really improved who I was. I wasn't, when I came out of school and university, I wasn't a finished article by any stretch of the imagination. And over the years, I think, I've improved who I am and what I'm about, and it's always still a work in progress.
Yeah, awesome. Barry, are you ready? I'm looking forward to your session. Before you start, I just want to encourage the colleagues who are watching. Please, if there's any questions, comments, fire right away, and we will pose those questions to Barry. He's got such a very insightful presentation. I'm looking forward to it. So over to you, Barry.
Thanks, Roche. I'm just going to share the screen right now. So what I'm going to talk about today is about innovation and technology, and really from my experience. I don't want to infer from my experience to other businesses and that type of thing. I think you need to take the sort of lessons that we've learned along the way and insights that we've gathered and apply it into your environment. And just really talk about the discovery journey. I'm really going to focus on our international business. Discovery today is a global business. We really focus on financial services. We've got a very specific model that we use. It's called shared value insurance. In other words, we try and encourage people to improve their behavior. Once they improve their behavior, for example, a person driving a car, if they drive better and have fewer accidents, that kind of thing, there's extra money in the system, because they're not having an accident, they're not claiming. So we try and share that value with them. So that's why we call it shared value insurance. It's through improving behavior, and that's the insurance model that we use and really pioneered worldwide. And we use it across all our businesses, whether it is health insurance or life insurance or short-term insurance. And our whole core purpose, who we are and what we do, is about making people healthier. That is the essence, sort of our North Star. When we started our business, we really focused on this single thing. We still today. I live my life by this, and I think most people in the company are really focused on the core purpose of, trying to get people healthier, making, whatever we can do. You can take anything. You can take the current pandemic, for example. What is the best thing now in the pandemic is encouraging people to social distance, wear their masks, and go for their vaccines. And that's exactly what we're doing. So our whole purpose, everything we do in our organization, about making people healthier, enhancing and protecting their lives. So you can see the evolution of our business at the bottom of this slide is that we started out in I think 1992, and we really started out in health insurance. That was our first foray into the market. And then in about 2000, we already developed the idea of Vitality, this behavior change or engagement program. And we sort of applied to health and life insurance. We started a life insurance company because it applied to that. And then we started looking at other further afield, like investments and short-term insurance. And we also saw that this not only applied and worked in South Africa, but it can work in any insurance market around the world. So we looked at expanding this into the United Kingdom, where we have a very sort of a carbon copy of Discovery in the UK. It's called Vitality in the UK. And then my job, what I do at Discovery, my colleagues, is taking this into other markets. So that's what I want to talk to you about today is lessons learned by taking really a great idea and a great business model that was developed by Discovery and internationalizing and applying it around the world. And our whole model, as I said, is based on making people healthier. How do we do this? So we use this idea called shared value insurance. We use a Vitality program. to encourage people to change behavior. So by encouraging people to change behavior, it's good for them. You know, they're driving better, they're healthier, they're smoking less, Roche not going for smoke breaks, they're exercising, eating healthy, etc. They get better benefits out of it, improves their lives. It's good for the insurance company, lowers claims, it improves people stay on the books longer, they're clients of ours for longer. It's good for society. People drive better if they're healthier. It's good for everyone if you're healthier. You know, governments don't have to pay for your medical expenses, there are fewer accidents, it improves productivity. And we take that savings in the system and give it back to the members. That's why we call it shared value insurance. And what does this model apply to? It applies to all forms of insurance, all forms of financial services. Even in banking, it can apply to, you know, by being a prudent spender of your money, by saving money, etc. Behavior links to any form of financial services, and that is our model. And if you look at it, where did we get this idea from? We saw what was happening in the marketplace with three kind of trends that were happening. First of all, the risk, the nature of risk, the nature of how we live our lives was changing. As opposed to getting sick from infectious disease, people were getting sick from non-communicable diseases of lifestyle. I mean, even take this pandemic today, it really impacts, impacts unfortunately quite a broad spectrum. The people who suffer from a chronic ailment have an even worse outcome. So the nature of risk, even if it's infectious disease, is really is changing towards more an impact of lifestyle. Also, what has happened over the last 2 decades is technology has improved dramatically. You know, today you can have a wearable device or your cell phone, you can measure exercise, you can measure healthy eating, you know, what is a person purchasing. There's so much assistance from technology to improve a person's lifestyle. And I think corporate purposes have also changed. You know, this whole idea of having a purpose as an organization to improve society, etc. I think corporate purposes have changed. So it's the intersection of all these three elements that has really changed the way we think, and it's enabled us to create this behavior change program. And that's how we created Vitality over the last couple of years. So what I really want to focus on, once I've spoken about our business model, is taking this idea that's been very successful in South Africa and in the UK and taking it to other markets around the world. And today, we are all those areas, those orange areas, where we actually operate, where we offer the Vitality program. So it's a South African born idea. It was created here in South Africa and worked exceptionally well. We went to the United Kingdom. That was our second market that we went to. And over the last 10 years, we've expanded this, and we use a partnership model. So we work with other large organizations that work with clients. So we call it a B2B2C model. So we, the B, offering it to other insurance companies, and they offer the Vitality program to their customers. So we are in Japan, we are in Asia, in China, in the Middle East, in Europe, South America, and North America. We've partnered with large and very successful insurance companies to roll out the Vitality program. Today, we are in over 30 markets around the world. Last week, end of last week, we launched our 30th market, which was Brazil. And it's really using the same model, the same thinking with these companies. So what has enabled it? What has allowed us to operate and take this very successful idea and business model created here in South Africa to other markets? The first thing we did was use the right technology. So we created a platform, an app, a platform similar to other platforms like you can think of multiple platforms like an Uber or whatever, that's a platform. Even the iPhone is a platform. So we created our own platform for Vitality. We call it V1. So we did this I'd say about 5, 6 years ago. We decided if we're going to take this idea and go into other international markets, we've got to create a technology that will enable us to roll out Vitality to these other insurance markets. So it was called V1. We wrote it here in South Africa with some partners. It's a highly scalable technology. It's cloud-based. It's multiple layers. It's got all aspects. It's got a device platform. It's got services, data that it collects. It's got an engine that encourages change of behavior. It's got a lot of features. It links into our partners, it integrates into the market, and we've created and rolled this platform out to the markets in which we operate. And this is how we've actually rolled out this platform. So when we originally started and went around worldwide, we used our legacy, our old insurance systems and Vitality systems, and that worked well, but it was quite expensive. So we wanted to create this kind of platform in the cloud, and this is how we rolled it out. So you can see we've rolled out this V1 platform to multiple markets. Today, most of our markets have got V1. They operate using Vitality 1. And as I said, our latest one in 2021 was in Prudential in Brazil. But you can see how we've rolled it out around this world. So it really is a platform created here in South Africa that we're rolling out to these other markets. And it's got everything in this platform. You know, as I said, it's got an incentive. We've got incentives in it. It changes behavior. It's got a data layer. We've got collect, manage data like exercise data, or people go for health screens, get that information. We've got a pricing layer for insurance purposes. So it's got all this information in this platform that we then offer to our clients. And we also link to wearable devices like Garmin and Fitbit and Polar on one side, and applications. There's so many health apps like sleep apps and meditation apps and coaching, and for you, Roche, smoking cessation apps and nutrition. So it all links into this Vitality 1 platform. So that is a technology that we use, and it really has leveraged our business model, something we created here in South Africa, and leveraged it into other markets, and can work in any market, whether it's in Africa or Asia or in Americas. It really does work. It's kind of an insurtech platform, technology behind insurance. So what is the innovation that we brought into these markets? I mean, you can take one simple innovation that came actually not out of South Africa, out of our UK business, was something called active rewards. And instead of looking at a person's activity over a year, or their health over the year, or their healthy eating over the year, we wanted to do something on a weekly basis, give someone an incentive to work and exercise weekly. So like if you take a person's normal activity, they maybe gym on a Tuesday, or swim on a Thursday, or run on a Saturday, etc. You give them points for doing that during the week. And if they achieve it, if they get all their points, they do all the exercise within a 7-day period, they get a reward. And you can give them any reward to incentivize them, like a coffee or a smoothie. And this, when our colleagues in the UK launched this, was with great success. These weekly active rewards, because you're trying to create, something that works on a weekly basis. In fact, we are now extending this to sleep and to healthy eating and to meditation, whatever you want to do during the week. But it was a great idea, sort of game-changing idea, that this is something that we created in the UK, and we rolled it out on our platform to all the markets in which we operate. And you can see this is the kind of thing that we did, say, even in the US, we worked with insurance companies, taking this kind of idea into all these markets. And you can see, if you look at our app today, this platform, this V1 platform, works in multiple languages, whether in Pakistan or with IGI Life, or in Japan with Sumitomo Life, or in the Netherlands. You can see it's fairly similar, or in Germany with Generali, fairly similar what we've done. And this is the kind of stuff, the innovation that we've brought into these markets. Something simple like a active reward, a weekly active reward for doing, weekly activities and exercise. Last thing is, have we created leadership? We've got the technology, we've created the innovation, the products and the ideas. What is our leadership position? And we have been recognized. This model, the shared value model, insurance model, has been recognized around the world to be kind of changing the paradigm, changing the way insurance markets work. In 2015, I know it's a few years back, but Fortune had this list of companies changing the world for good, and Discovery ranked 17th. So a South African business, South African organization with this idea that's taken it around the world, ranks 17th around the world for companies actually changing the world for good. And the reason is we're trying to get people to lead a healthier life, to drive better, spend money more prudently, etc., using financial mechanisms to do that. If you look at the world's strongest insurance brands, right? That's the list of strongest insurance brands. In fact, our partner, Ping An, in China is number one. They are the largest insurance business worldwide. But Discovery, as I said, a insurance company that started out of South Africa and now in 30 markets around the world, is the second strongest insurance brand in the world. And it's because of this very effective model that we built. And if you look at it from our recognition of a program and the awards we won, in every market we operate in, we are winning awards, whether it's in China or in Hong Kong, Australia, France, in the US. Even the World Economic Forum has recognized this as a game-changing, different type of business model that's doing something positive for society. So that's it, Raj. I've gone through our business model. I've gone through our technology, how we've expanded this technology around the world, some innovation that we've brought to the markets, and I think our leadership position when we created that in different markets. So I'm going to hand over back to you, Raj, if you've got any questions.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Barry, for such a insightful, concise presentation. So I will lead with a couple of questions, and from there, I'm looking forward to receiving the questions from the audience as well. Barry, as a start, I mean, there's a book by Professor Celestius Juma about innovation and its enemies. And he talks about how most of these innovations that we see today initially were rejected, right? People, measuring, for instance, when it first came through, people didn't want it because there were a whole lot of reasons, because it was disruptive to the butter industry. Telephone also, when it came through, people were concerned, people will not be working, productivity is going to go down because people will be talking on the phone. It was rejected. I mean, if we fast forward to today, there's vaccines. I mean, there's still some pushback on vaccine to say, are we not tampering with people's DNA and things like that? At some point when you introduced these innovations, were there no pushbacks? I mean, how did you deal with pushbacks from established industry players who felt threatened by your innovation? Were there any pushbacks? Were there any challenges in getting your innovation over to be accepted?
So Raj, it's a very important point. I mean, as I said, a lot of companies have got some unique selling feature. What makes them unique? Why are they successful? How can they succeed? They have to have something different, service, whatever that they're offering that will make them stand out. And what makes us unique as an organization, what we focus on, is product. I would say we are, at the essence, Discovery is a product-led organization. We really strongly believe in our products. And we spend a lot of time and energy as an organization on new products and developing new products. And always, in every market, you don't have immediate acceptance, immediate taking up of new products. You've got to work it. You've got to market it. You've got to sell it. You've got to explain it. You've got to go overcome objections to it. Sure, there are early people that will take it out. Some people who are interested right up front will take it out. But to get the majority of people over time to buy your product takes a lot of energy. You're not going to, whatever business you're in, just put it out there and it's going to happen. You have to work it actively. And it's all about the right brand, or first of all, the right ethics, the right values, the right brand, marketing your right brand, pushing it out, overcoming objections, all these things. You've got to be able to do that. And it takes a long time, a lifetime to build a great business. It's very difficult, to do it, but that's the process you've got to go through, And I reckon it applies to every business, no matter what business you're in. You've got to put your brand out there. You've got to market yourself. You've got to think of social media. You've got to overcome objections. You've got to offer good service. That's what creates a great business. And it takes time. There's nothing like an overnight success. Yeah. There's nothing like that. I mean, you build it many, many years and many, as you said earlier on, it's not a straight line. There are many bumps in the road. But if you believe in your product and you think it's got value and it's got value to add, you will work it hard and you'll push it. And sometimes you get that exponential growth. People love it. They want your product. Now there's demand for it, and that's the greatest place to be. But then you got to deliver the service after that.
So thanks, Barry. I mean, I hear it's going to take a long time. How long? I mean, are you able to? I'm listening to you. I'm in Orange Farm. I have this. I mean, I deal with some of the entrepreneurs on the program from Orange Farm. Brilliant concept, brilliant ideas, brilliant innovations. How long should they? What's their runway? How long should they say?
So Rosh, it's got to be a product that at least sells to some people. You've got to have acceptance of the product to some people. You can't just have an idea concept that is completely tangential to what's going on, There's got to be some acceptance, you've got to be selling something. If no one's accepting it, no one's seeing it, I reckon you've got to question your product. Many times, Rosh, we changed our product. You'd go out there, you launch something, you think about it, oh, this thing's good. You go out there, you get some positive feedback, but then you get say, no, we don't like this, we don't like that. And you got to be open to changing your product and improving it on it. You'll never ever have the best thing, the initial right. I mean, even take the iPhone, a great invention, but it's developing all the time, improving all the time, And you got to have the attitude of the sort of continuous improvement, and every year or every so often improving on it. I remember many times in our business, we'd come back from a client call or whatever and say, this is not working. It's not working. He's not buying. The individual's not buying. We've got to change it. We've got to change your pricing. We've got to change the servicing. We've got to change the product features. You've got to have that open mindset of moving quickly, and you got to take feedback seriously. You can't be arrogant and say, listen, this thing is mine, I've invented this, it's mine, and that's it, accept it or whatever. You got to get willing buyers, people to part with their money. In order to do that, you got to convince them, and therefore you got to take their feedback very seriously.
But I mean, one of the biggest, questions that I get from entrepreneurs is, when do I change, pivot, or when do I persevere? Like, I believe this is what the market wants. Maybe it's early, and you are saying the feedback comes in, they are rejecting it, but I believe this is it, right? Or what's the balance?
So I like to put in certain targets and those kinds of things, and it's got to be realistic. Say X number of sales per day, or X number of sales per week, or X number of sales per month. You've got to get there. And you got to give yourself a certain time period to get there. And if you're not getting there, then you got to question yourself. Listen, this thing's not working. I've got to pivot. I've got to do something else or change it. Oftentimes you think, you come out to the suite of products. One thing, they like one thing or one aspect about it. And then you must de-emphasize other stuff and focus on the aspect that is really good, that is catching on. But you can get a sense talking to customers where this thing's landing, where it's not landing, very, very quickly. And I think you've got to be target driven, and you've got to be realistic about your ability. I mean, if it's not selling, it's not selling. You've got to do something else. You find a way. You can't believe in a product to your death, you know what I'm saying? Otherwise, the business is just simply not going to survive. So I do think, you got to be a bit introspective. You can't just believe your own stuff all the time. You got to be a bit introspective, see it from their perspective, from the client's perspective. You got to take that, as I said, you got to take that feedback seriously, pivot where necessary, etc. It's very, for me, it's all about active management.
Thanks for that. So the product is accepted. Vitality is a great product. People love it locally. We have sort of crossed the chasm from early adopters to early majority, right? And this thing is working. You now take it to outside markets, outside South Africa. You take it to all over the world. And I'm looking at the map of the world. I'm like, you are virtually almost everywhere. What were the challenges? I mean, I'm definitely convinced there were cultural challenges. There were all these other challenges that were different to South Africa. If I want to grow my innovation outside of the country, how do I go about it? I mean, you get to see South African brands, MTN, Shoprite, they're going out there. What are the challenges that I need to look out for when I scale my innovation globally?
So, I mean, the first thing is the positives. South Africans generally are innovative people. They are friendly. They are warm individuals. I think they are adaptable in terms of different cultures, and that we got very good skills here in South Africa that makes us, good partners worldwide. I do think, as I said, people here in South Africa are self-starters typically and innovative. I mean, you've seen a lot of South Africans worldwide that have done exceptionally well coming out of this environment. So I think there is something special here in South Africa that we can export. I think the one thing we've got to learn is you've got to improve. The challenges are about standards. The standards outside, it's like, you're playing the PSL here, and you got to go to the Premier League or the Euro. The standard is just higher. It is just better. I think we got good assets, but you just got to raise your game. And it's like the quality's got to be better and world class. You got to be responsive to your clients. Everything for me is about being on that world stage, and you can't accept errors. You can't accept poor quality. You got to be world class, and I mean, you go into different cultures. They raise your game as well. They don't accept poor quality and that type of thing. I mean, if you're exporting whatever, fridges or whatever you want to, you're exporting, it's got to be world class. I mean, you can't just slapdash put it together and say, well, it's good for the South African market, it's going to be good in the European market. It won't work that way. It's got to have that kind of level. And as I said, I really do believe South Africans have got something special. The one thing they lack is that realization of the quality standards around the world are higher and better, and we've got to reach in order to get it. And I think we can. I really believe it. I think we've got it to operate at that level, and we just got to take it seriously.
Yeah, and you have done very well, Perry. I mean, you and your team have done very well. But give me a sense of what happened. I mean, one thing that shocked you when you went out there is like, oh boy, we really need to raise our game here. What was one of those things that really, gave you that rude awakening to say we need to up our game? Which market? What was the situation? Are you able to share a little story on that?
Look, I mean, you've got to realize that we are, as I said earlier on, we are B2B2C. So we're taking the product, selling it to large insurance companies, they then selling it to the consumer. they've got a lot of suppliers themselves. It might not be unique. We're offering them something unique, but they've got a lot of other suppliers. And those suppliers are, like companies like Salesforce in the US and, Microsoft and SAP. And these are large organizations with massive research and development capabilities. And, they're not shy to spend on consultant, whatever, and on people and etc. So they've got really good quality. So when we went out there, we've got to make sure that our stuff is that good. There are so many anecdotes about actually we just got to make sure that we operate rating at that level. And we offer also consulting advice. So you got to make sure that your consulting advice is just as good and understand the local cultures. You can go to China, for example, or India. They don't purchase healthy food like we purchase. They go to a wet market, for example, to purchase their daily vegetables and meat and that type of thing. We buy it in a supermarket. In China, people don't go to the gym. It's not a culture to go to the gym. South Africans like to go to the gym. So whilst the model is the same, you've got to adapt it to the local conditions. And that's something that we learned quite a lot. The basics are, as I said, the basics are the same, but there's certain cultural things that you need to understand. But at the end of the day, Raj, people are people, wherever you are. Same desires. So there are nuances. You also got to remember, that this thing will work no matter where. And, we think it works in developing markets, in developed markets. So we're confident our product is workable in all markets.
Awesome. So I'll just ask one more question and then I'll open it up to the audience to ask their questions. I see there's some questions that are already in the platform. I'll get to them now. You spoke about leadership and product leadership. I want to come to, leadership from a team perspective. How do you lead an innovative organization? How do you get, you hear stories about how Jobs used to get the best out of his A-team at Apple, and some of this you might think it's urban legend. How do you get your team to come up with all this amazing innovation, so to speak? What type of leadership style does Barry Swartzberg have?
So, Raj, for me, it is important. I don't think it's like leadership is about strong decision making and these kinds of things. I think decision making is actually by consensus. It's about debate. It's about finding the right aspects. I don't think it's like making these massive decisions. I don't think that's what leadership is about. I think, I'm often, you should debate things. Is if there's an issue facing your business, you get your team together and you debate it from all angles. Should we do this? What about this? What about that? And you should be open to all suggestions from everyone. What is the right thing for our organization to do? It's about debate. It's about getting everyone's input, and ultimately the decision becomes an obvious decision in the main. 95% of the time, it's not like you're going to make a call. We've got to do A or B. We're going to do A. You debate and everyone says, oh, A is the obvious way to go, must be. Because you've debated every single angle. And I think that is certainly from a decision-making perspective, I like that. I like that about Discovery. We're an organization who loves to debate things. I'm a very passionate debater. I always have in my whole life. Maybe sometimes too passionate, Roche, but I enjoy that, and getting everyone's input and coming to a conclusion that it's right, as opposed to also leadership is about, in my mind, is about serving the organization, and it's just a position, better than anyone else in the team. Everyone's got their role to play, It's like in a football team, everyone's got their role to play. There's one person who happens to play that role plus be the leader. But everyone's got their role to play. Their defenders, their attackers, their midfielders, etc., etc. that's the, in my mind, that's the way to run a team, where it is, you know, everyone is respected for the roles that they playing and they offering. And, you know, it's not like, I don't like this idea of a sort of a triangular top-down organization, that the person on top is all-knowing, knows everything, makes all the decisions, etc. I don't believe that's the right way the organization should run. I believe everyone's got value to add. Yeah. You're hiring a person, when you hire that person for your company, you hire them because they got value to add, because they got a mind, they got things to bring to the organization. They, you know, their experience might be better than your experience, you know. And I think that's important. Everyone can add value. That's the kind of leadership I enjoy being part of. That's the kind of teams I like working in. That it is not this top-down, heavy, you know, like a military organization. That's not for me. My type of leadership is more like a serving type of leadership, where it's every person's got value to add. Leadership is one of those positions, and take, you know, and that's just my view. And I like it. I think those kinds of teams are effective, you know, and I reckon, you know, good organizations have that kind of leadership where they get the best out of every single person. If you can do that, can you imagine what companies would be like, what teams would be like, if everyone is performing at their absolute best? That's what I like.
Great, thanks. Let's go to the questions. I think the first one from Ilse Martins. Barry, that was brilliant. Have you guys considered to invest your best practices in NGOs? You know, helping to scale impact in social development environments, you know, tech, and scaling is huge gap in the homelessness sector, for example.
So on NGOs, we have played a role. We have a discovery fund where we provide assistance to NGOs, and then we also help them with governance, with raising funds, you know, methods of raising funds, methods of management, financial management. You know, an NGO is just as difficult to manage as any other organization, and you need good quality, you know, management within that and leadership within that. So that's what that I think is very, very important, that you know, NGOs get, and we give that kind of input certainly into the NGOs we're involved with. So I think, you know, it can apply these kinds of ideas of you know, good governance, and that applies to all organizations. And unfortunately, NGOs suffer from, you know, not having the proper governance, and I think it can help enormously if they do have that, you know, and improve the effectiveness of raising capital, raising funds, that type of thing.
I mean, Barry, I mean, the other alternative to NGOs that's maybe not necessarily an alternative, but maybe an augmentation, is social entrepreneurship or social enterprises, which brings the financial aspect of, you know, of doing good. Do you think we have embraced social entrepreneurship to a large extent in the country, you know, or is it we're just more focused on just doing good?
So I like that idea. I like social enterprise and social entrepreneurs. I've met many that have done phenomenal work in South Africa. You know, there is such a massive need in South Africa that, you know, if you are willing to do it, get involved in it, there's so much to do. So, you know, and we would encourage that, you know, the social impact bonds and all sorts of things in order to get involved. I know it's more difficult. It's more difficult to raise the funding and that as a social entrepreneur, but I have seen some phenomenal people, really unbelievable. The angels, you know, people who've done work that are, you'd be so proud of the work that they do. I've seen it so many times of people trying to improve society and, you know, work on it, and I think it's just fantastic. We should encourage it as a society. Social entrepreneurship, it's not always about, you know, for profit and building businesses. Social entrepreneurs also have a massive role to play.
Awesome. The next one is from Bright Amisi. Barry, you repeatedly mentioned partners. How does one decide on the right partners for their business? Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming as you go global, you're partnering with other people as you go along. What is that secret ingredient that you look for in your partners?
It's a very, very good question. So, we are a partnership, certainly outside of South Africa, we are a partnership-led business. That is our business model. The lessons I've learned is, first of all, you've got to be aligned culturally and values-wise with your partner. You've got to be wanting the same thing. So your visions have got to be similar. Also, I think you find the best partners when there's a bit of a choice. If you've got a choice of 2 or 3 and you're making an active choice, that is the best way to partner with someone, if there's an active choice in that. But I think the most important thing is about alignment of values, alignment of culture. Also, what I found with partners, a very difficult time in partners is it's a lot of times it's personality based. You have a relationship with an individual, you get on, and even if you've got formal contracts, it's very personality based. You've got to watch. The biggest risk is when those individuals leave the organization, and then the next individual comes in, they want to change things and that type of thing. That is the most important time in a partnership, is that period, that transition period. You've got to re-establish relationships with a new individual and that kind of thing. So you've got to watch out for that person.
Direct says Barry is right about having a customer. I heard a guy on 702 saying that as long as you have a customer who wants to buy what you have, the rest of the stuff is secondary. Is it?
Yeah, I think it's, as long I'm with that. I think as long as you're getting customers and willing buyers, it doesn't have to be at the volumes you require, but you've got to be able to sell your idea. You've got to get a buyer. You've got to get someone to say, you know what, I like what you got there, I want to buy. Can't just be an idea. I'm an ideas guy with thousands of ideas. To put that idea into action and to get a buyer, I'm with it. And as I said, for me, if you can convince one person to buy, you can convince many people to buy. Get those first customers, and then you'll grow from there.
Awesome. And then Nikki Stuart Thompson says, what are you looking for in putting together a successful team? And I think this is quite interesting, who are able to work innovatively together. Is it a combination of yes people and naysayers, or what or who do you prioritize? So how do you put together this innovative team? Well, is it a combination of yes, sir, and no, sir? Is there a formula that you put into a pot and voila?
So as I said, I don't like this idea of, I like a team where people feel comfortable to add value. They don't feel like it's, yes sir, no sir, it's whatever, it's or yes ma'am, no ma'am, whatever you want. But I find if a person comes in and is able to give the best of themselves at work and not be pressurized in any way to do anything, and if they've got a genuine concern, they should be able to, if you have the comfort to raise it. If you disagree with the direction of what, or where the team is going, you should raise it and say, listen, I actually don't agree with this decision. I think we should be going this, and for this reason. As I said, it's got to be, the business case should prevail. What is the right thing for the business, and you should debate that, and everyone should have input into what is the right thing for the business. And I like to hire people that challenge you, that bring the best out in you, are not just following the normal route. They want to challenge you, and not negatively and not politically, for the best cause of the business, to improve the business. If they have the best of the business in mind, and they're equally trying to make a success of the business, that's the kind of people you want in your organization. That they put the business first, what you're trying to do in your organization. Put that organization first, not their own self-interests, etc. What is best for the company? And if everyone in a room is saying, well, what is the best for us, for this organization, whether it's any organization, taking it forward, what is the best for this organization in order to improve it, then you get the best out of every single individual.
So, I mean, which comes first, Barry? Do you put a brilliant team together, they come up with an innovation, or do you come up with this brilliant idea or innovation and then bring the team, you know, if I have to look, do I look for amazing people and put them in a room and say, okay, now this is what we need to do? Or do I say, here is this, you make it happen?
So my view is the very first thing up front is your product, your business plan, and that's something you can do on your own, or you and your partner, whatever, your business partner, and come up with that up front. Typically, the people that you hire up front in a business are different. They're more pioneering. You find kind of pioneering people join an organization up front. They see your vision. They want to be with you. They're kind of different people. Once it's more established, you get different other kind of people that are more comfortable with an established organization. You gotta be, you attract more sort of entrepreneurial, more people willing to take a chance up front than you do when it's more established. You just get kind of, different people are attracted to different things, and I've always found that. And so for me, up front, it's about creating that business plan, creating that product, getting it going, making the early sales, trying to get those few customers, and then start hiring your team. But you must recognize, as I said, different people are attracted to early start businesses. People are just more pioneering. Some people are more pioneering than others.
What is, Anonymous, what is the biggest lesson you learned about being a B rather than an A when going overseas? I'm sort of thinking, when you go to global markets, the standards are raised. What is the biggest lessons that you have learned?
Yeah, look, I mean, first of all, you got to put yourself, you got to have consistency, you got to have the high quality, you've got to communicate, often, and you can't hide issues and problems. Every single aspect that you think is important in South Africa, it is enhanced, and even more so overseas, So it's like augmented overseas. So I just think all these lessons, I think it's about communications. I think it's about understanding their needs. These kinds of things. That's the kind of thing I would do. I mean, you've got to do that here in South Africa as well, but I think it's as I said, it's augmented internationally, especially when you from a distance. You got to meet with your clients even more often, and you got to be even more prepared, etc.
Yeah. From Dorette, another question from her: how do you stay ahead of the pack when you are a small business? I mean, there are so many copycats, and the rate at which they copy is so unreal. How do you keep on, being ahead of the game when there's, I mean, your model it's not like Coca-Cola's secret recipe. We can see and can understand how it works. How do you make sure that yours stays ahead of the pack?
It's a damn fine question. So first of all, I think you need the right attitude. You shouldn't see it as a burden. You should see it as a challenge. You should have the right attitude that, this is something I've got to crack. I'm enjoying this process of keep on honing my products and my services, keep on improving it. That's what makes business exciting and enjoyable. If you're just doing the same thing day in and day out, and the money is just rolling in, etc., there's no excitement. There's no, you got to keep on moving forward. That's what business is about. It's continuous improvement. It is not just about being stagnant. If you stay stagnant, your competitors will take you out. That's the way it should work, right? So in my mind is accept it. Have the attitude of continuous improvement, looking externally from external into your organization, and be genuine about the issues. Listen, my product is not as good as it should be. My services is not as good as it should be, etc., etc. Be honest with yourself, and in my view, if you can, take it on as a challenge and keep on improving. And keep on improving your product, keep on improving your services. And sometimes you have to take a quantum leap and make a pivot or something. If your market share is reducing, you've got to operate. You've got to do something, better marketing, better this, better that. That is, for me, that's what it's all about. That change, that challenge, that continuous improvement, that's what makes it exciting. If it was just, sitting back and money rolls in or what, well, there's nothing to it.
Yeah. Barry, I think 2 or 3 years ago at the Discover Leadership Summit, you invited Professor Christensen, the father of disruptive innovation. And he has sadly passed on 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. He wrote a book before he passed on, Prosperity Paradox, which is about how do we create prosperous societies globally. The question that I know he's always obsessed about is how do we create prosperous economies from, in poor communities. And the question that's coming out here is, why has Discovery not infiltrated the African market?
We have. Okay.
Okay.
No, we do operate in Africa. Our Vitality Group haven't landed any contracts in Africa, although we're actively pursuing them, and we're very interested in it. But we do currently operate in Africa. We've got some products that we sell into Africa through Discovery Health, etc. So we do operate, just not my specific division hasn't landed anything. It's an amazing thing. I've traveled to Asia many times, and what you find is micro entrepreneurs there. It is phenomenal. That's what you need here. You need micro entrepreneurs. You need someone to be a seamstress. You need someone to do dry cleaning, whatever. In a small environment, in a village, you got to start there. That's what changes things. And and the local community have got to support those entrepreneurs. You can't have it. Entrepreneurs start something, being a seamstress or whatever, and people don't support because they don't want they don't want to give that person business. That doesn't work. You got to, in that community, how do you get things? You've got to have micro entrepreneurs, in my mind. And you'll see in Asia, that's where the market has been these markets have been great, phenomenally successful. You go to Vietnam, you're going to small villages, they're operating, man. Things are happening. There's small restaurants and there's small businesses, and they doing things. You can't sit back. You've got to operate. And I'm the one, yes, you've got to have an element of education, but the thing is the attitude. You've got to have the right attitude of becoming a micro entrepreneur and finding things to able to do it, like whatever, artists. And the world is rich with so many things to do. There is so much, in my mind, and there's so much value people can add that I just think that's the kind of thing we need as a society to encourage and to honor the people that are micro entrepreneurs.
Awesome. We've got 5 minutes left, so I have about 5 questions. So I'm gonna try and squeeze them in. I think I find this quite a pertinent question, not only to you but to all business leaders in the country, from Anthony Joseph. And he's asking what challenges did Discovery experience in getting through political and competitive barriers here and outside of South Africa?
So there's always politics. You need to recognize that in any endeavor. Politics is part of the human condition. It is, but we try and minimize it. I mean, don't pander to it. And so in my mind, I like to concentrate on the business, on the products, on the clients, on the aspects that make a business successful, and to minimize politics and political interference and other aspects. Just concentrate on what you need to do. And I'm convinced that if you continue to do that, you have the grit and persistency, you will do well.
Awesome. Cecil van Geerden is asking, when it comes to NPOs like hospices, what would your advice be for individual hospices to grow and establish themselves and become financially independent, given the nature of their work with mostly indigent communities, being reliant on corporate grants, donations, etc., to continue the work they do? So what would your advice be in terms of them growing and being financially sustainable?
Well, first of all, they offer unbelievable service, unbelievable, and people who run it should be honored for the work that they do. It's very needed service, and it is underrated. I agree. I think it is tough, but you got to be open-minded about these things and accept that challenge. In my mind, the things to do is market yourself, brand it, social media. You got to do that. You got to raise the profile of what the services that you're offering. And it's great service. It's unbelievable services that society needs, desperately needs. So how do you got to get it out there. You got to talk to people. You got to, as I said, social media, marketing, and then you got to have a proper strategy for fundraising. You got to do it. It's like a business. It's an important part of operate. You can't just assume money is going to flow in. Ain't going to happen. You got to have a strategy. How are we going to raise funds? Who are we going to apply to, etc., etc. And even if you're operating in indigent community, you got to do it. You're not going to survive otherwise. So fundraising is important as part of running the hospice. You got to accept it. You can't just moan about it and say, listen, funding is a problem and someone else. You got to do it. I've seen this. I've dealt with hospices. It's difficult, I know, but you got to have the attitude. You got to raise the funds. You got to do that, and you got to do it in a way that's like a business, about marketing and about operating and about talking to people and communicating.
Great. I think Tamba's question about expanding in the African market, we have answered that. Louise Oosthuizen is asking, why not partner with Food Lovers Market? Why not partner with Food Lovers Market? I'm not so sure.
So Food Lovers Market is a South African product, South African company. Unfortunately, I just operate internationally. I can ask my colleagues, Dinesh Gavin, who runs Vitality in South Africa. I'm sure he can answer quite well about that. We are open to partnering with anyone. So we love working with other businesses. So I'm sure there's an opportunity.
Awesome. Last question, Barry, before we wrap up. Sajida Kara is asking, can you talk to middle management syndrome, where by virtue of their structural position, they are simultaneously the victims and the carriers of change within the organization? What can we do to make sure that values filter down, and how are we addressing this pressure point? And I think that will be the last question. We'll try and address the other questions on the platform later on, but I think that let's just wrap up on that question, Barry.
No, I think it's a very, very important question. I think something that's underrated. It is a difficult position to be in because you've got people that you report to and people that report to you. So you're kind of caught in the situation trying to satisfy both upwards and downwards. So, for me, it's about, I've seen very good middle managers. What makes them excellent middle managers? In fact, first of all, they're genuine. There's no politics and that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to do what is best for their business. They have a genuine interest, looking downwards, looking after their staff, managing their staff properly with the interest of their staff at heart. And as I said, trying to ensure that their staff operate and bring the best of themselves to business and to be liberated. And then upward managers is about communication, continuous, proper communication. What is happening in your environment, offering advice and recommendations, and involving management, more senior management in the decisions that you're making. For me, it's about communication, proper communication, and empathy and proper, looking after your staff properly. But I find middle management actually, it's underrated. It's quite difficult because you've got these competing environments, but you can, I believe, if you operate properly, you can make it work by, as I said, properly looking and liberating your staff and communicating upwards properly.
Awesome. Barry, thank you so much. Any last word before we wrap up?
Raj, you've taken it all out of me. I feel completely exhausted. I just want to thank you, Raj. You've been a great host. It's been great to be a part of the Mentorship with Purpose. You know, listen, I love business. You know, I've always loved business and been part of an enterprise. So it's great to be able to offer a little bit of my experience. So great to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and thanks for your time and your generosity. If it was not because of time, I'm sure we could spend another hour or two. But thank you so much, Barry, for just opening up, but also for the leadership that you're providing to the team. But I think also to the country. I mean, you are not just representing Discovery, but you're flying the flag globally, and we really, really are grateful for that. So thank you so much. And that was the co-founder of Discovery, Barry Swartzberg. Thank you for your time. So what we'll do is we'll take a 5-minute comfort break, not smoke break, comfort break. But before we do that, there's a poll that we'll run where you will give us a sense of how you feel about the session. And from there, we'll then have my man, Timothy Maurice Webster, will be taking us through managing remotely. And he's got an amazing panelist of Nonkululeko Pitje and Gavin MacGregor that they will be discussing how do we work remotely. But before we take a 5-minute comfort break, can we just respond to the poll, 2-minute poll that will be coming up right at the moment? Overall, how satisfied were you with the event? And just select the very satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied. On my part, thank you so much. I'll catch up with you tomorrow. And I'm leaving you in the capable hands of Mr. Maurice Webster. Tim, are you ready?
Absolutely. Rush, great job, man. We really appreciate it. We look forward to coming back after the break. And I can't wait to have this chat with Nonku and Gavin. We'll see you guys in a moment. Enjoy filling out the poll. Thank you.
Awesome.
Welcome back, everyone. Hi, I am Timothy Maurice Webster, a behavioral psychology author, and I have the stunning, absolute privilege to be hosting this session around shifting to digital migration. And I am joined by the incredible head of Discovery Health with over 20 years of experience, Miss Nonku, we call her Nonku Pitje, and Gavin MacGregor is director of the Umthombo Youth Development Foundation. And both of them are doing innovative, mind-blowing work. And they're gonna have sort of two different views on digital migration. And both of their views are going to be very enlightening because one sort of works in the shiny, beautiful city of Sandton, Johannesburg, and one operates more in the rural area. So we're going to have two extremes covered in this conversation. Before we jump in, there's a couple things I'd like for you to do. One is I want you to keep your brain hydrated. I want you to make sure you get plenty of water because as we share this information with you, one of the big ways that you retain information is you boost what we call alpha waves. And alpha waves are created when you keep your brain hydrated, and it helps you process, make new connections in the brain to explore what we call neuroplasticity, or your ability for your brain to make new connections. So you're going to be hearing beautiful, mind-blowing ideas. We want you to be able to make new connections. We're going to have another poll just to sort of see how you're feeling, to see where you are before we jump into this masterclass. So if we can launch this poll, that would be wonderful. And again, as we prepare to launch this poll, our two guests today are prepared to offer you, to engage you They will present, but they want to engage you. So please send your questions in. Make sure that you engage. The previous session was extraordinary, hosted by Roche, and the masterclass was delivered by Barry Swartzberg, co-founder here at Discovery. So I think we are prepared now to launch this. Okay, so we're going to do the poll at the end instead of at the beginning. I think you have already processed the poll so far, so we're going to just do it at the end. So we are going to jump in. Nonku, I'd like to start with you. How has mentorship played a role in making who you are and positioning you to be who you become?
Thank you, and it's a privilege to be here. Thanks, Timothy, for the question. Sure, I think mentorship has played a pivotal role in my growth and development, and really it still continues to play a pivotal role in different ways. And maybe just in terms of, and I can only speak from my own experience, I think mentorship is one part, and I think from mentorship comes sponsorship, which is really the ability, or when somebody starts to actively drive sort of your career, your next step in terms of work. And if I can just give a sense of how I've experienced it, I think firstly, there's a need for you to have your own self-mastery, to be brilliant, to have done your own 10,000 hours. And what I find in the organization we work is that people are absolutely exceptional. People really work hard, they put in the time, they research, they bring their A game. And I think that's been critical in my sort of experience, because that's when a mentor spots you, even before you know what mentorship is and how you should be mentored. And when you get into that space where you're doing excellent work and people want to almost guide you some more, channel you and direct you, that's what I really found. I was partnered at Discovery at a certain point in time with a female mentor. Her name is Penny. And I can't tell you how brilliant she was at different levels of, one, my career, but also my personal life. So when they initially partnered me, it was as part of a program. And I remember thinking, oh, is it because I'm a Black female and she's a Black female? And, you know, obviously I was more junior and she was at group level. But actually the partnering was brilliant. Obviously there were things taken into consideration in the background. I was still upcoming in the organization. And I remember her in an ExCom or after meeting, she had sat next to me and she said to me, you need to contribute to more than just your area of focus. To the ExCo now, you know, you're still shy. Your voice is not, you don't feel like your voice is solidified. You don't feel like as a young woman, maybe in a room that's more filled with sort of elderly white, in the main at the time, male colleagues, that you have a voice, or when you have a voice, you're not confident. And she just whispered that to me. And so it was sort of a process of watching and seeing and nudging. And I took so much from it. And in terms of my journey, it gave me so much hope on the divorce journey. So maybe to summarize, it's been amazing for me, both from a career perspective, but also from a personal perspective, and later on in life from a spiritual and other perspective. And my nudge would be, if you don't have a mentor, find one. And hopefully someone finds you first. But if they don't, put you in a position where somebody finds you and elevates you because of what they know and what they've learned that you don't.
You know, you guys can be so intimidating, Nonku. You guys are power players. You dress so powerfully. You look amazing. How does one even begin reaching out to someone like you? And just, you know, you're a junior person. You just dream of having a conversation, a mentorship chat. What would you recommend somebody as a starting point to reaching out to someone like you?
Yeah, I mean, I would answer that from two perspectives, Timothy. The one perspective is that I think there's an absolute responsibility for leaders in a business to find people and to play that role. That is a basic part of leadership. And I think sometimes in the busyness of the world and the work world and life in general, we often forget. And I think I've made it a discipline, and I have a bias towards younger women or young women in the business, simply because I've walked the journey and therefore I understand. But I often look around the room, and when there's a new person who either joins an executive committee that I sit, I'll make it a point to reach out to them and have a coffee and say, listen, it might not be a formalized relationship, but I'm here. I'm going to watch a little bit. I will nudge a little bit sometimes, but know that you can reach out to me. So that's one. And I think that's it's important from a leadership perspective. Secondly, though, I think businesses play a big role, and in Discovery in particular, they've been really good at this. So how do we create programs and avenues for people to either be formally partnered or to create an environment that is fertile for people to be able to do this? And then finally, I guess for me, it's been quite easy. And in fact, unfortunately, I've had to be discerning around where can I really add value to people and where I can't. So because of, I think, the fact that I'm quite energetic and sort of positive, and I'm a people's person, I find that a lot of people reach out. So literally people will be bullish about it. They'll reach out either through email or through a WhatsApp or through a phone call and say, I would like you to mentor me. And I think the responsibility of a mentor is to think about, am I best positioned to add the best value to this person at this point in their career? Because the truth is, I would love to mentor everyone, but I would do no work. So I'm quite saying I can add value here, or guiding someone to maybe a different alternative within the business. But I think those are sort of the three levels, from a leadership perspective, a business platform perspective, and then people just have to be bold and put up their hands.
Yeah, thank you so much. Gavin, has mentorship played a role in who you've become?
Hi, morning, everybody. Wonderful to be here. Thank you, Timothy. Yeah, not to the extent that I would have liked as a young person. Certainly in my early career, I had a few mentors, but it wasn't formalized, and mainly because I was working in an academic environment and then an NGO, so it's less formalized. There's no, real structures. But the wonderful thing is that people believed in me and gave me opportunities, which is the first step in terms of, the process didn't continue in terms of the mentoring that Nonku is talking about, but doors were opened and people believed in me. So that was really great. But I have learned the huge value of mentoring and being mentored and mentoring. And I'll share a little bit of that a bit later in terms of the work that we do.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Is there anybody you're mentoring now where you look at them? Firstly, is there anybody you're mentoring, Gavin? And if there is, what do you see in them that brings you hope?
I think the big thing about a mentor is seeing more than what that person themselves sees in themselves. So they may be focusing on a career, but you see other aspects of their life that you can speak into, or they have huge potential and they don't know about, or they may need to trim down, or work a bit harder on that. So yeah, the thing about being mentored or being a mentor is it's a relational type of thing, and as Nonku mentioned earlier, it may start out being formal in that in a company so-and-so is allocated to you as a mentor, but I think it really starts working when there's some sort of relationship. And she shared a key point there where her mentor started sharing her own life with her, and then it's at a different level completely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So Nonku, I just want to be clear, people want to know about your business portfolio. So while we queue up, you have a short presentation for us, right? Yeah, while we queue up your presentation, share a little bit about the extent, because you kind of a vast portfolio. As we queue up the presentation, tell us a little bit about your portfolio.
Yeah, maybe to start here, I've worked in many different parts of the business. I almost feel like Discovery has been a bit of a jungle gym for me. So I've moved up and across, and so I feel like I have a very good sense of the broader business. Where I am operating now is that within the Discovery, I have two portfolios, one in the Discovery Health business and one at group level. Within the Discovery Health business, I look after new markets. What this means simply is outside medical aid, I look after components of new businesses that we're building. So we have a low income product as an example that's focused on making affordability better, access better in terms of health insurance. We have an employee assistance program. We've got gap cover. We've developed some COVID support products within that space. So I guess all things, but not within the medical scheme. And then at group level, I look after the employer engagement strategy. So this really talks about how do these solutions, how do we respond to employers with these solutions across the group? So as opposed to saying health, what do we do in health, in group risk, and insure across the business, and how do we bring it together in a meaningful way for an employer?
Okay, awesome. So we're looking forward to your presentation, and then we're going to have Gavin present, and then we'll have a little bit of conversation after both of you present. So guys, please send your questions through. We're looking forward to answering some of your biggest challenges that you may have around digital migration. This is a conversation. All right, here we go.
Awesome. I'm just pulling up the presentation too.
Okay, no problem.
Brilliant. Okay, awesome. So the idea was not to give sort of a very long presentation, but really to give a sense of how we've navigated, I think, at an employer perspective, but on a personal perspective, sort of managing remotely, and this migration from, I guess, a world where we engaged on a daily basis and had a coffee with our teams to a world where we had to contribute and work with each other very differently. So what I've titled the presentation is Managing Remotely, a story that could be a challenge, but could also be an opportunity. Maybe a place to start is that COVID has been a disruption in all of our lives in the most significant ways. I think in some ways, very hard and very tragic. We see an increase in mental well-being issues and mental well-being challenges. We see issues in terms of global recessions, in terms of economies struggling, our own being a pivotal one. And we also see that there's been a huge migration here on the side to sort of digitization. If you don't have digitization or you're not working sort of on a digital platform, then you're getting left behind. So that's the world that I think has dealt us one hand and has forced us to a different place. And if I start sort of in the discovery context very briefly is, last year was, I think, severely hard for all of us, regardless of whether you were financially impacted or just emotionally impacted. It was severe for all of us. And one thing I did, and I was really blessed that I worked within Discovery at that point in time, because it was one of those organizations that was quite agile in terms of moving. But first we thought about our employees in the most meaningful way. How do we not lose jobs? How do we make it easier? How do we move every single person that we can to work from home? We moved over 8,000 people and set them up to be able to work from home. We had the same kind of challenges as the technology didn't work well at first. Which platform should we use? Is it Zoom? Is it Microsoft Teams, etc.? But I think the ability to just almost mobilize and move superbly fast. But where I was most proud, and I think I learned so much, and some of the solutions that are on the screen are solutions that came from my business area, was just how we used the opportunity, and we used the remote working, digitization, digital working as a way to actually add value to the process. And it was all the way from how do we deal with our members, which are our first responsibility, to how do we contribute meaningfully at a country level and at a South Africa level. And maybe, and I won't, it's a lot of words, I won't go through all of them, but just to give you a sense here. So on the member side, which is our first responsibility, the members trust us with their health and their well-being. We did things like we had a COVID information hub that's available to everyone, member or not member. But today we run this hub, and this hub gives you ongoing information on all subjects, from how to work remotely, how to quarantine, how to help your kids through COVID, how to explain COVID to your kids. So every single topic we could think about that was affecting people at that time, we created a hub and have a team sort of around it to think about how do we push this stuff to people where people are disaggregated around the country. We also did things like we were one of the first to have a digital screening platform so that people can start screening for COVID. We moved very quickly to virtual consultations, so you don't have to see your doctor face to face. You can see them through virtual consult, and we'll be able to process a claim and pay for it rather seamlessly. We moved to home monitoring, where we used to have nurses that used to go to homes. How do we do home monitoring? I've highlighted some of the things I wanted to talk about in blue. Within the employer space, and in fact within my team, and I'm very proud of the team for what they've done. We came up with a product that's a COVID business support to support businesses to support their employees through this. So from when we get the employees test that comes out positive, the employer doesn't even have to tell us because we get it through the claim process. We then contact the employee, we navigate them through, guide them through what does it mean to isolate, what does it mean in their own context, depending on where they live, and then go and we manage on a daily basis through virtual management, through calls and through digital to say, how are you doing? Are you escalating? Do we need to find another plan? Do we need to take you back to a health professional? And then finally providing reports on a daily basis to the employer on how many of the people have tested positive, how many of those are in hospital, and unfortunately, in some cases, how many of those have passed away. So I think a very meaningful way, that's a total remote, managing system, but that connects the provider, which is Discovery, the employee of an employer that's just part of our ecosystem, and the employer in terms of reporting. Then I've talked about virtual consultations, but maybe on the right here in terms of country support. I mean, we seconded one of our most senior directors, Jonathan Bloomberg, who used to be the CEO of Discovery Health. We seconded them to the national task team. We're very involved in terms of data gathering, processing data, and providing these insights, which really we leverage from data. But I think most importantly, as something like the COVID Alert app, which is a country app, but very much something that was born out of Discovery. So really what I wanted to highlight is from what was so negative, when we moved into remote working, we're able to connect the dots and make meaningful shifts for members, for employers, for healthcare professionals, for our own scheme, and for the country, and contribute meaningfully. Then I looked at a few case studies, which I thought were incredible. The first one being, the case study around the Maldives. So across the globe, we saw a huge impact economically. Our country, I think there were lots of, views, some criticizing how we went on a hard lockdown to begin with and what it meant and the impact on the economy and jobs. And we all know that story. And then when you look further afield, people facing exactly the same kind of struggles and taking a very different stance. And the Maldives, this was a CNN article. Maldives became the biggest 2020 international tourism success story, which was incredible. So remote working actually, and being able to work and live in different parts of the world enabled some of this. But the Maldives took a very different stance for those of you who don't know the case study, but they just decided that actually they're going to use this as an opportunity. And they're going to use it as an opportunity, and they're going to also keep their country safe. And given that the Maldives has many islands, and almost every island every hotel sits on a different island, you almost could apply social distancing. You would have small populations of people in an island that you can control. So if there was sort of an outburst of COVID, you could deal with it. They had rigor in terms of coming into the country and being positive, going out of the country, and making sure that you test again. So they put all of this rigor, and they've been hugely successful. And given that tourism makes up such a big bulk of the economy, if they'd pulled out completely, it would have meant absolute devastation for a lot of the people. But I thought maybe a story that will bring it home for you, the story I just wanted to tell you. So firstly, I think people started to think about travel and luxury. Maldives used to be the romantic place you go when you get, on your honeymoon, or maybe when you're going for a sexy holiday with your partner. But it became the place where you go with your family and go with everyone, right? And your kids could school from home as they do today. And you could work from anywhere without missing a beat. So whether you were here or in the Maldives, your colleagues would have exactly the same experience. And what's nice is that you can work and do a little play. And I thought maybe to demonstrate sort of the power of thinking outside of the box and thinking about remote working in quite a powerful way. I was speaking to one of my colleagues internally, and they were like, it looks like it's different where you're working. I'm like, yes, I've moved to Durban. It really made me happy. It like changed my perspective a little bit, gave me some freshness. And then I was telling him so I moved and it's just made such a difference. And he says, let me tell you an inspiring story. I was talking to someone today from another organization. We're having a business Zoom call. And at the end of the Zoom call, I was saying to them, it looks nice where they are. And he's thinking of doing something like going to work somewhere else for a month. And the person stood up and showed them their bikini. So up top, they were wearing a shirt. And down bottom, they were wearing a bikini. And they actually moved to the Maldives for a few weeks to work in a different locale. So I just, I think it just challenges our construct. I mean, we all have different challenges. So I'm not saying we can all access the Maldives, but the point is that the construct of seeing an opportunity, and you'll probably find that person has a lot of independence financially, but they probably couldn't do much travel or much, holidaying in the time when you're working at the office and you need to be present. And they're taking a very great opportunity where they can work from anywhere, where nobody knows what they are wearing beneath. They're wearing a shirt, they can have a business meeting, but as soon as you're done, they're taking off that shirt and they're jumping into that pool that you see in the middle.
Yeah.
I thought maybe to end off a little bit of my own story. Excuse the bikini picture, but I think I wanted to really bring it home in terms of the opportunities. Like anybody, I struggled initially with remote working. I'm a high energy person. I really enjoy the engagement, interaction, etc. But I found this time and some of the learning really meaningful. And I think I've unlocked some really powerful nudges around, I guess, my own life, but connections. And I'll try to tell you, and I'll go quick up, but some stories around these pictures. So I called it a day at the office in 2021, and I'm not joking. This was a Friday. I was working a full day. In the morning, I had meetings. In the afternoon, I was just going to be doing work sort of on my laptop. And my kids were on a school holiday, and they'd gone with their dad to Cape Town. And so I said to the dad, no, don't send them back. I'll try find a place in Cape Town to bring them to me when it's my turn to have them. And I found a place that was really a nice place and easily accessible. It was right at the waterfront. But in the morning, I had serious meetings. I was wearing my office work. And in the afternoon, I sat on the stoop in my bikini and I was working and I had a full day's work and it was really quite joyous. And that last picture I'll come to the last picture. But again, it's just the ability to live life slightly differently and really take advantage of being able to work in different spaces and enjoy it. And you know more about what's happening with their families. You certainly know more when somebody has COVID or maybe is suspected to have COVID, or they're struggling because they've lost a family member, and you're really getting involved in a really, I think, a richer and deeper way. And my work, especially in terms of new markets and employee engagement, involves a lot of engagement like this. And it takes a lot more to make the connection with, let's say yesterday we had an engagement with the head of people for one of the blue chip companies. I need to connect with this person. I need to know who they are. And so I come on, I'm fixed up, I'm dressed, and I'm looking at them and I'm asking them personal questions about what's happening with you. Are you okay? Should we be helping you? It's just really, I think for me, pivoted how I engage with people. I think COVID in itself has made me just more aware that people might be struggling in a way that you don't understand. Take a moment to sort of link into that. And given that you don't see people, when you see them, like really relish that moment. So here we had won, we thought we were going to win. We've now won. We had gone for a big tender. It was big business. We had done all this work. We had not slept for days. I put it in that diary, so people must know that they need to be careful and they need to isolate. And as soon as we were sort of in the down slump of COVID, I organized this get together for the three of us at a restaurant. And it was just so deeply meaningful because these are people I haven't seen, I haven't spent time with, but we're working 24/7 together on a remote basis. And so you really take it in a different way. And then finally, on the right-hand side, those are my little people, my two daughters. And this was at the time in Cape Town. So in the day I had been working a full day, but because it was Cape Town, it was still day at 7. But at 7 in the afternoon, evening, which I would never do in Johannesburg really, I then took them, we're all done. They were done with remote school. I was done with work, and we went to the beach and we had dinner. And so just how I'm starting to think and construct my life is this can be such an enhancement if I think about it. This can be such an enhancement in terms of how I can reach out to people. I can talk to my friend who's in Timbuktu or wherever, but also I can just connect with people more deeply and more meaningfully if I choose to. Don't switch off your screen. Be fully present. Look at faces. Look at how people are responding and reacting. See if you can, if you detect this distress and how you can reach out to support people. So that's me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nonku. We really appreciate it. I want everybody, as we shift and hear a little bit from Gavin, I want you guys to be thinking that make your Maldives your backyard garden if you can't get to the Maldives. If you can't get to, if you can't get to your garden, build a plant in your home and set up next to your plant. Nonku, before we hear from Gavin, Nonku, I'd like for you to be thinking about, because once we hear from Gavin, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. I'd like for you to be thinking about what is some super low cost ways to migrate for an MPO. If you've got someone who has a much smaller budget, what are some ways that we can migrate? I'm looking forward to hearing an opposite, sort of a counter perspective almost from Gavin. Gavin, take it away. Look forward to hearing from you now.
Thank you very much. Just to share a little bit about my presentation, I just want to touch first on the mentoring and then the digital migration. The work that I do is we support rural youth to study health science degrees as a way of addressing staff shortages at rural hospitals. So that comes with quite a number of challenges, but the power of mentoring, which I mentioned earlier, and hopefully you can see some of these graduates on the right here. These are all young people who had huge potential, but needed help in navigating their higher education journey. A lot of it was financial help, but another significant part was mentoring. And so we currently this year supporting 169 students. We've produced 488 graduates, but every student is mentored and has a relationship with a mentor. And we've touched on mentoring, but it's such a significant aspect and can add huge value. And many of these graduates would attest to the fact that they had an incredible relationship with their mentor, which helped them to actually achieve more than what they felt that they were capable of. And then if we can talk about managing remotely, in terms of our situation, a non-profit organization, we're a small organization, 4 staff, but supporting 170 odd students, and all of the students are rural, studying at 16 different health science institutions, and coming from 15 district hospitals in northern KwaZulu-Natal. So we got thrown in, like everybody else, into the digital migration through COVID and the scramble of how do we keep going. What happened for university students, they got given 72 hours to vacate residence and head home, which in itself was a huge upheaval. Once they got home, it became quite a challenge. Well, the initial lockdown, we all thought it was going to be 3 weeks and everybody be on holiday, and we kind of were all quite positive about this, an unplanned break, even though we couldn't go anywhere, but we weren't all too concerned about how we're going to work. But when we did pick up the work, because from an office perspective, we essentially just put in leave just to account for the time. But one of the challenges I found in managing a team was that you had to now be more proactive to understand where people are at. I learned that every staff person is in a different situation. They may have young children, and the children are now at home, and they've got to cope with that. And so your normal office day, 8 to 4:30, has been disrupted because they've got to do some homeschooling. There's continual interruption. So one of my senior people had a 4-year-old daughter, and she now was struggling to do her work and look after her child, although fortunately she did have her mother staying with her. So the whole expectation around work had to change. The work would get done, but probably not in the same timelines. And I think, as was highlighted in a discussion yesterday on this forum, that the management needed to become more humane. We needed to listen to each other, be more human, and understand people's different challenges. And I certainly had to be more intentional about finding out how people are doing within themselves, because they were facing fear, uncertainty. Will we lose our jobs? What's going to happen? But the biggest challenge we faced was looking after our 170 students, because they all come from rural areas. And when the university started with online learning, it was a huge challenge, mainly because of connectivity and the expense of data. Data costs are incredible, but connectivity was the issue. And arriving at their home, being first generation university students, there's nobody at home who is supportive or understanding. If you're at home, you get involved in the daily tasks that are going to happen. You're part of the family, you've got to do chores. And we found that quite a challenge in terms of keeping track of our students and seeing how they're doing. And the one story in particular, Tombi, our student manager, was trying to get hold of a student and sent messages and WhatsApp, email, and so on. And 2 days later, the student responded, and Tombi said, "Well, where have you been?" "Well, no, I've been busy herding cattle and been at my uncle's place, and just busy with all the stuff that happens in a rural area that often we just take for granted that they would be working hard." But we found that although the students were coping at university in terms of a digital sense, now that they had to work and learn digitally, that digital literacy was a big issue. And it certainly is something that we have upped our game in, to try and get students more literate in terms of their devices and their technology, and accessing various sites. And the universities, the big thing then was the data companies said, well, university sites would be 0 rated, but that was only for content that was coming off a university site. Once you went onto YouTube for additional learning material, any other source, you needed data for that. So those were real challenges that we had to face, and we stepped in as an organization and bought data for everybody. But it was quite a learning process of understanding how much data someone needs, and how best to, of course, the more data you buy, the more cost effective it is. But working all those things out certainly was a challenge, but thankfully we got our students through it, and the 2020 academic year only finished in March 2021, and gratefully 93% of our guys got through, so that was not bad. But I must say the outcome of all of this was additional anxiety by students, higher stress levels because of the uncertainty and them not knowing where it leaves them, especially final year students, and also students that have to do a certain amount of clinical time. Those were real concerns for students, and put a huge pressure upon them last year. So we've learned from this. We've tried to put things in place to ensure that going forward it will work more smoothly, because certainly I'm sure a lot of higher education institutions are not going to go back fully to face-to-face teaching, because there's been a lot of lessons learned from blended learning, and that would be a huge advantage.
Thank you so much, Gavin. I got a couple of questions for you. Did you guys do a bit of a case study? I mean, how did you do your digital literacy training?
With difficulty, to be honest, because we had a range of situations where, depending on what institution a student was at, they either had received a device or they were going to receive a device. And in some cases, throughout the lockdown and the period that they were not at university, some of them had no device at all. So that was a huge challenge.
Okay.
Yeah, it was very much trying to support those who have devices, but some institutions, because of the huge demand, all of a sudden for devices, only arrived in August when most of the students were going back to campus.
Okay, awesome. Any sort of final comment on this before we open it back up? We only have a few more minutes. Guys, thank you so much for locking in and engaging. What I love about this session is the contrast between the rural area versus sort of the corporate dynamic. We really appreciate the contrast in this conversation. In fact, I think that offers a lot of value. Any final comment there on your presentation, Gavin?
I'm fine. I'm happy to take any other questions or some discussion, whatever.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Nonku, we want to know, like, if you were now the director of an NPO who had a low budget, how do you translate this extraordinary work that you've done at the healthy company where you are a director?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Firstly, I think during this period, it's been the small and not the big things. So I showed the big things. I showed the person I showed the Maldives and their business case, and I showed that people had other options in doing things differently. But what I found most meaningful, so firstly, I think we connect with people in the workplace for work reasons. One of the most powerful levers we've been able to introduce is sort of team meetings that are just about a check-in. And it's created an element of safety, security. So we do it only every 2 weeks because, I mean, we need to do work. But we spend time, and I often ask 3 questions. So check in terms of what's happening with you now, but it's always first, what's happening with you, what's happening with your family, and what's happening with work that's keeping you awake at night. And it's been amazing how people have opened up. In the first couple of weeks of COVID, people were saying, you need to help me. I can't be with this lady anymore that I call my wife. I used to see her 6 to the next day at 6 and now it's full time. So we take it for granted, but these are massive shifts for people. Some relationships were based on the fact that we have time together, but we have time apart. So we got to share stories about how you're coping. Then there were people around their kids that this has created such a lot of anxiety, and then would be sharing. So the one component that I will introduce is how do we create structures that we either call coffee sessions, that allow us to connect, firstly as human beings and show humanity before we connect as anything else. That would be my first. The second is that I think what would be key, and this is available and we make it available also to our clients, and hopefully we make it available to everybody on this call from an NPO perspective. But how do we create tools in a toolkit that is available on an ongoing basis for people in an NGO, especially at a leadership level, to deploy almost in the sense of deploying like an initiative. So let's say as an example, this month we're focusing on optimization. Gavin talked about some of the digital challenges, but about optimally helping your student child or your normal child to work with remote working and be brilliant at it. So we've created a toolkit of every guide. We've created a toolkit of how to exercise at home, and we've got videos that people can link in. We've got podcasts. We've created tools around financial struggles, because a lot of us have moved from a dual household income to a single household income, and that has created its own. So how do you cope with that? What are the key considerations? So really, I think those are the two levels for me. One, how do we keep united and support each other as an organization? But two, are the tools that we can start driving themes within our organizations using tools that we can leverage from a discovery or from another entity that is sort of plugged in and supporting. Can I say one last thing, Timothy?
Yeah, you have 15 seconds.
Okay, I'll be done. Just the last thing for me personally, and I don't know how it's transpired for everybody else within sort of my broader team, but I've seen it in my personal team. There's also just small things on the daily basis. Like I go walking more often now with my mother, something we never did because I used to go gym somewhere and they used to go. I play cards during small breaks with the kids because right now they're at home and they can't be. So it's what other small changes can you make that makes this experience richer than the experience is just in terms of almost waking up, coming into these meetings, talking the whole day, working with other employees. So when I have a 30-minute break, I'll check if they have a break and I'll play cards, and it will take 5-10 minutes. I'll grab a coffee and I'm back at my laptop. But I think important also to use this remote working as an opportunity for connections or new routines that really enhance your life.
Thank you so much. A huge thanks to both of you. You know, our next session with Joe Van Niekerk is going to pick up on a lot of this conversation about shifting towards digital. And what we will be doing now is taking a small break, but I'd like for you guys to launch the poll and share your thoughts. You know, I want to make sure that one of the big things that came through here is the power of connection. If your team is in a rural area or your team is in a city, make an effort to connect. If it's difficult to connect, in Gavin's case, then make a phone call, send a letter, whatever you have to do, figure out a way to map and design a connection strategy. In Nonku's case, up the ante, make sure you figure out a way to design more connection. Guys, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. And if we do get further questions, we will send them directly to you and upload on the platform. So when people come back to the platform, they will be able to engage. We really, really appreciate you guys making time. Thanks Gavin.
So much.
Thanks, Nonkul.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Timothy.
Tim.
Bye,
Appreciate
Nonkul.
it. Thanks, Gavin.
Bye.
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 Thank you. And thank you guys. Appreciate please launch the poll now, or if you guys, will we have the poll after? Okay. Cool. We're really looking forward to Joe's session coming up, where we'll be speaking more about shifting to digital. Please make time to engage this poll in the next couple of moments, and we'll share with you, and I'll do a formal introduction of Joe in just a moment. Please share your thoughts if you are satisfied, very satisfied, or neutral. Keeping in mind the absolute goal of this was to give you a range of insights. You may not connect with the rural area, or you may not have connected with the larger big budget challenges or the big budget opportunity of designing this. But the whole idea was to give you insight on a broad spectrum. And we would love to know if you were satisfied around how we took the masterclass and extended the broader spectrum view on this migration challenge. This was very intentional, very purposeful. to show you two extremes. Would you recommend this event to others? I certainly would. Guys, as you're taking this poll, please grab some more water, make sure you're hydrated. As we move forward to after lunch, it's going to be important if you can grab a small bite to keep your system and your nervous system energized. These ideas require cognitive load, and you need to feed your brain what we call brain food. Grab some fruit, grab a light, healthy snack, and keep your brain energized to keep you alert and sharp as you digest this information. And thank you so much again for your questions. We really appreciate all the questions that are coming through. One of the things that I absolutely appreciate is the ability to be able to have these events. Logistically, this would have been very challenging in the past. People would have had to come to a central location. Many people would have had to fly in for this mentoring session. But digital has given us this opportunity to connect. I'm super grateful. Do you plan to attend another event in the future? One of the biggest keys to success is the power of curiosity. Attending these type of events, even if you take away one thing, it's unbelievable how it can shift and reshape how you think about the world. An appetite for ideas. As we begin to wrap up this poll, we're going to transition in a moment into our next session, which is shifting to digital. I'm going to give you guys 30 more seconds to grab you some more water, find something, a light snack, and then we're going to launch into our conversation with Joe Van Niekerk. Thank you guys again for participating in the poll. If there are any of you who have just joined, again, my name is Timothy Maurice Webster, a behavioral psychology author interested in human behavior. And I'm delighted to be sharing in these masterclass conversations and hosting with our panelists, our extraordinary panel of guest speakers, industry leaders, innovators. It's absolutely a pleasure. And I hope you are enjoying it as much as I am, because I'm here to learn as well. I have been on this continent for about 15 years. I commute back and forth between the US. My family is on the East Coast, but everyone in my family absolutely loves this part of the world, and it's an absolute delight. If you don't want to call me Timothy Maurice, I went through a regiment ceremony where I joined a regiment about 5 years ago, and the name they gave me was Gagnani Gagnani. And that name came because I told them I'm trying to learn slowly but surely. And that's how I go into any mentorship conversation. And that's how I'm going to go into this conversation with Mr. Joe Van Niekerk. Slowly but surely, we're going to engage the topic of shifting to digital. Joe is the COO, Chief Operations Officer for Vitality. He has an MBA from Henley Business School, did a postgraduate diploma in financial planning at the University of the Free State. And if you think about the goal of his mission, his work is helping people live well. And they are doing an extraordinary job at it. And Joe, we are delighted to have this conversation with you. How are you today?
Thanks for the great introduction, Timothy. From your bio, I think we should actually just sit back and maybe listen to you for the next 30 minutes, because I'm sure that you're going to be able to share a lot more insights on this subject than me. But thanks for the kind introduction.
Sure.
As Timothy said, so my background is insurance. I've spent my entire career working for various insurance companies. I joined Discovery in 2009 as the Chief Information Officer for Vitality in the UK. And then I joined Vitality South Africa in 2014. When I joined Vitality, it was the first time in my insurance career where as a sitting member of EXCO, the number of doctors outnumbered the number of actuaries on the exco. So it was an interesting experience for me to be part of a wellness company as opposed to an insurance company. So it's certainly flavored or colored my perceptions on insurance subsequently. So I prefer the way that we do it in Discovery as opposed to where I've worked before.
Well, we certainly appreciate the evolution of your own career from, this space, and just, the power of transitioning from kind of actuarial mindset to health mindset and so forth. And we know that has offered you a lot of value, and hopefully some of that comes through. Thank you for your generosity of time. Thank you for engaging this. I'd like to start this conversation with just asking you a very simple question. How has mentorship played a role in your life?
So I think mentorship goes back to what do you define as mentorship in your life? So it goes back to childhood, like what role your parents play. Maybe there's an influential pastor, a religious figure, friends, teachers are hugely influential in our lives and give us some of the values. So if I can reflect on some of the things that are, I don't know, it's like a mental picture that you actually view the world on. And some of the examples that I can relate to is, if you've worked with a particularly inspiring person, what that person does is it provides you with a lens on how to actually see the world. So, for example, I've worked with one guy who was also in IT, but was a great mentor to me, and it left me with the ability to be able to see things through his eyes. So if I get faced with a difficult position, I ask myself, how would X have solved this problem? And because I've worked with him for so long and know, I mean, we can finish each other's sentences, it actually helps me frame problem solving about challenges that I actually deal with. So it's certainly around the ability to be able to see problems through a person who you respect's eyes, and then how does that actually translate into actionable insight for you? Some other things is around the concept of discipline and rigor. I had a good friend who was an author, and this author explained that if you're an author, it's your job to write. So the idea of the discipline of being an author means that you need to write every single day, and it also solves the problem of asking yourself, is today the day that I take off? So like showing up, being present, and being an author meant that in his particular case, he never had a day off because that was what he did. He was an author, so he showed up and he wrote. So it's about showing up and actually having that presence. I mean, like how that works in my world is that physical activity, exercise is incredibly important to me. And I don't know, but you or the audience is that sometimes you get challenged with like, I really don't feel like working out today. I just like to couch it out and sit it out. And then you remind yourself is that like you said that you were going to exercise every day. So it removes the mental debate about whether whether today is that day that you actually couch it out and decide not to exercise. And then I think there's other examples of great leaders that I've worked with where examples of, like, for example, before you tell people what to do or how to do it, you've got to tell them why it's necessary. So onboarding folks around a particular outcome so that they understand the rationale before you tell them like what needs to be done is critical. And then lastly, and perhaps counterintuitively, also don't forget the bad leaders. So all of us have worked with somebody or worked for somebody that wasn't the most inspiring person. Understand what it is that made you feel uncomfortable about that, and then rack it up so that okay, I'm never going to do that kind of thing. But like at least I've been able to isolate what it is that actually makes me feel uncomfortable. Yeah,
there's so many beautiful insights with what you've just shared. I heard once an interview with Paulo Coelho, the author of The Alchemist. He was on Tim Ferriss's show, and he says that in his scheduling and his discipline, he would go and sit, and if ideas did not come, he still would not remove himself from his writer's chair. And he literally would plant himself there. even on a personal level, a day challenge. Yesterday, I didn't feel like doing it. I had probably eaten a little too much at dinner, but afterwards I pushed myself to get through it. And I appreciate that level of discipline. When you think about your level of discipline and who's helped you get through, before we go into shifting to digital, is there anyone you want to thank? Any person you want to just take a moment, Joe, and just say thank you to that person, whether it's a family member, a religious leader, like you said. I want to just give you that moment.
Yeah, the guy that I frame, that I opened up the statement about is like, how would X solve that? Is a guy that's currently employed at Discovery. He's a great mentor to me. It's one of the other CIOs in the company. His name is Lee Zakowitz, and yeah, I've worked with Lee for 25 years. So it's wow. He would be that person. Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right, let's talk about shifting to digital. Your insights. We're looking forward to this part of the conversation. When did you realize the power of digital, shifting to digital?
I think I've always been a bit of a tinkerer. Anything that's worth doing is worth over-engineering. So like from right when I started off my career as an underwriter at Liberty Life, the underwriter's job is to sit there and assess new business cases and apply the right loadings and onboarding the business. And after a while, I realized that what I was doing was incredibly repetitive. So what I did was I designed a system that would actually be able to do my job for me. And since then, it's probably been every job that I've been involved in operationally has been to try and figure out how to actually make it better, more efficient. And that's culminated in the experience that we've got at Vitality, where we have the ability to be able to use technology to influence an enormous number of people. There's millions of people that are part of the program, so yeah, it really goes back to the start of my working career, and my values as a person, which is like, how do you use technology to solve personal human problems?
Awesome. Now, over the next 20 or 30 minutes, we're going to engage. Would you like to share a presentation? Do you have a few slides, or would you like to just fully lock down in conversation? How are you feeling at the moment?
We've got less time than what I expected. So I would like to share a few slides. Maybe what I'll do is check out the part that is specific to Vitality, because I really wanted to do that. So what I will do is share a presentation, and then we can take the conversation from there. Can everybody see the slides that are up?
Yep, looks good, Joe.
Cool. All right, so the agenda is the shift, some tools that are available, and then like what can you do to help lead the shift. I'm going to bring up a video that I found that I think is incredibly relevant to this subject. It's a couple of minutes long, but I think it does set the tone, particularly for the digital transformation and the unique opportunities that it presents for Africa.
Consider this number, 42. That is the age of the average person in the developed world. Now consider the number 19. That is the age of the average person in sub-Saharan Africa. Those two numbers tell us something important about the future of the world. It tells us that Africa is the young continent. Not only that, Africa will soon be the custodian of the world's youth. Today, there are 800 million young people in Africa, of whom 200 million are under the age of 5. Before this decade is out, 1 in 3 of humanity's babies will be born right here in Africa. This explosion in the number of young people is one of a triangle of forces that is shaping the future of Africa. These young people will be an exceptional source of human talent and energy. The goal for Africa is to translate all this human capital into an economic and social boom that will transform society. It is a big but doable task. Take, for example, agriculture. 6 out of every 10 Africans still earn their livelihood from the land. As the population doubles in the next 30 years, will agricultural output keep up? And will agricultural employment Double 2. Africa has the potential to feed itself and build massive food exports. But as the climate changes, what, where, and how we grow food will change dramatically. Climate change is the second great force shaping Africa's future. More frequent and extreme weather events will disrupt the lives of those in rural and urban areas alike and will impact on the livelihoods of the 600 million people who live off the land. Already, many young people are leaving the land to seek a future in the cities. All 10 of the world's fastest growing cities are in Africa. By the end of this decade, more than 100 African cities will have a population of 1 million people plus, and that number will continue to grow. By 2050, 23 African cities will have populations in excess of 10 million each, up from just 3 such megacities currently. This will create tremendous challenges, but also tremendous opportunities to transform lives. It is here where global tech change, the third great force, comes in. Many of Africa's youth have already embraced the icon of the digital age, the smartphone, but the opportunities are far greater. Tech is literally rewiring African societies. Through digital technology, young people across the continent can gain unprecedented access to knowledge, health, and economic success. We can create millions of new export jobs for young Africans in digitally traded cross-border services. Locally, labor-absorbing platforms can multiply local income opportunities. Youth, climate, technology. The greatest opportunities lie where these forces intersect. We in Africa, as custodians of so many of the world's youth, have no choice but to rewrite the rulebook. Genesis is working.
Okay, so I hope that gives you some idea of what the opportunity exists for Africa as a whole. But I found these stats which actually talk about the opportunity specifically in South Africa, and it gives you some idea of like what the opportunity might be. So in a population of just under 60 million, we have over 100 million mobile connections. So what that means is that for every single person, we have at least 1.6 mobile connections. People have got multiple SIM cards. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've got at least 8 in the family here. And I use 4 personally. Internet users in South Africa is about 38 million, representing, and these are the figures as at the beginning of 2021. So this is not dated stuff. So which is 64% of the population. And about 25 million people are active on social media, around about 42% of the population. How this has been growing is the population growth is relatively low. Mobile connections, we've pretty much reached saturation on mobile connections in South Africa. So the mobile connection rate is growing at less than the population rate. But internet users, it grew by 4.5%, 1.7 million people in a year. And social media grew by 3 million people, 13.6% in the course of the year. And I'm going to ask you some of your experiences in a poll in the presentation in a minute. I was going to spend quite a bit of time talking about digital in vitality and to create the context for vitality, but I think that time is going to run away with us. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to focus more on the part of the presentation that actually deals with how it applies to you. So what I was going to try and do is create some context for digital by explaining what we do in discovery, but we ran out of time for that. So what I will do is go straight to the toolkit part of the presentation, and we can have the conversation there in the context of what's relevant to this group. So just paging through it. Give me 1 second, we'll get there.
No problem. I can't believe there are 3 million new social media users. Wonder how many are on TikTok versus Instagram. It's just insane. Also, one of the big things in the early part of your presentation, I did not realize that the average age was 19 in sub-Saharan Africa. Wow, that's unbelievable. But that poses incredible opportunities. You can go ahead.
Definitely the young, we're definitely the young continent, Timothy. I'm going to bring up a poll just to get an idea of who's in the audience. If I can ask you, there's 3 questions that are going to come up. And I know that there's quite a few Discovery staff folks on the call. So if you could bring up the answers, if you could answer the first question, and then Sifiso, once we've had enough responses, could you bring up the responses so that we can so that everybody can see like who's in the audience?
Yeah, it's a great idea. Yeah. Also, it'd be interesting to see, because I know a lot of these areas have been hit really hard. I was just in Sun City, and Sun International having to close down. It was taking a huge emotional toll. Yeah. Be interesting to see how many people are in which sectors.
Okay, great. So I think it's representative of the number of Discovery staffers. Can everybody see the poll?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've got a few people here in retail, quite a few people in education, entertainment, and a lot of people. I think that's representative of the Discovery folks in the audience, but that is the huge number of people, and then other. Let's move on to the next question, and if I can ask the question, what is your biggest business problem? And I'm talking about this in the sense of the educators in the room, the people that are actually running their own businesses, and maybe for the Discovery staff, if you're aware of somebody that operates in the sector, like what do you think the biggest problem actually is? Is it finding new customers, keeping in touch with existing customers? Getting paid is enormously important in emerging businesses. Billing, sending out invoices, taking care of deliveries, or any other problem. So it would be useful to get your thoughts on this, and then we can have a bit of a discussion. I've got some ideas on how to actually help this digital transformation in this audience.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what the answers are here. I'm just curious, Joe, do you participate on any of the social media platforms while people are answering this question?
I'm an occasional contributor to LinkedIn and Twitter, not regular. And I've carefully curated my social media feeds that it's only stuff that really complements my interests. So here we go. So finding new customers, customer acquisition is a major consideration for everybody. Keeping in touch with existing customers, getting paid is relevant. Not so much billing. I guess if you're dealing with cash businesses, sending out invoices and so forth is less of a problem. And then also for this audience, I think that delivery logistics, with the likes of e-commerce businesses and Takealots and all of the e-commerce businesses, maybe delivery logistics is less of a problem for this audience. Okay, that's fascinating. I'll talk about getting paid and maybe some customer acquisition strategies in a second. And then the last question is, what is your biggest business overhead? So as a small business person, what category of expense is it that is your largest business overhead? Is it staff? Is it data, mobile, fiber, rent, office costs, which is stationery, food, etc., or other? It would be useful to hear what your biggest business overhead actually is.
It's interesting to see just how many people have gone to working from home. The commercial rental space has really shifted dramatically. A lot of these co-working spaces are still, I feel like they're going to boom after this period. I don't know. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think we're actually seeing the start of what's probably going to be a massive secular trend around office space. I think a lot of office space is actually already unoccupied. It's already vacant. And the problem is that the companies are just working through their rental lease agreements. So I think there's a lot more vacant space than what we're aware of because people have now figured out how to do this work from home thing and create the hybrid model. That's certainly the case in Discovery. Yeah. So I think that certainly the office workspace, not so much retail, but office workspace is we're seeing the beginning of a very, very long-term trend. Interesting. So staff overhead, data is a remarkably high contributor, and rent less so much. Okay. I'm not surprised about data. It's actually given what we need to achieve around digital. That's not the fact that it's the second highest single category is no surprise.
Yeah, especially hearing from the previous session just how challenging it was for people in rural areas. It's definitely an ongoing challenge.
Great.
So would you like to go back to the previous questions and talk through them?
Well, let me take it forward, because I'm going to weave those answers into some of the next questions. So,
okay, perfect.
According to the digital trends in South Africa, these are the most used social media platforms in the country. So, Timothy, your question earlier about social media, the WhatsApp was no surprise to me. I don't know anybody that's not on WhatsApp. Considering how important it's become as part of our day-to-day lives, what did surprise me is YouTube is considered as a social platform. I thought it was more like an education or a reference platform, but that's interesting. And then you can see all of the usual suspects: Facebook, Instagram, Facebook Messenger, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. Interesting around WeChat. I mean, I know nobody in South Africa on WeChat, and TikTok. I suppose that having two teenage sons in the house, that's becoming more and more relevant. And LinkedIn for professional or business purposes is useful. Some thoughts around the platforms that are appropriate for your business is, in terms of communication, any strategy that you've got around digital adoption that doesn't involve WhatsApp is missing something. It has become the de facto communication mechanism that we all use in South Africa, and it serves a couple of useful purposes of, for example, actually keeping a client list, providing access to your customers. It's secure, and it's free, which is critical. I mean, in Discovery, we're just approaching 300,000 people registered on the WhatsApp platform. It is the single fastest growing channel that we have to be able to communicate with our customers, and it provides access at an unprecedented level. And we're there because that's where our customers are. So the other thing I'd like you to think about is that all of these platforms, so Facebook, Instagram, if you're in retail or if you're in the services business, all of them come with shop fronts that you don't pay for. So you have the ability to be able to put your services up and provide access with a shop front, so that you can use these as platforms to be able to actually transact in the e-commerce sense with your customers. And LinkedIn is a critical profile because anything that's on LinkedIn is considered to be more legit than any of the other traditional platforms. So LinkedIn is for professionals, and the rest of the stuff is more for social. So on that point, maybe I could ask another poll, which is, please indicate which social media platforms you and your customers use, so we can compare that with the survey, the Hootsuite survey, and let's see what you guys are actually seeing in your customers. So WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, you can choose multiple choices, yeah? So WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, or other. Let's just see if the audience over here is reflective of what was inside that in that survey.
Joe, while they're answering that, we had a question around, for NGO sustainability, is getting paid or customer acquisition? They just wanted to contrast the two and get your thoughts on them.
So I'll actually answer that with the next slide. I'll give you some thoughts on that. I've actually got some content on that.
Okay. Super. And
so
there we go.
Here we go. 91% of your customers are on WhatsApp. Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, less so. LinkedIn. Relatively low on TikTok. I wonder if that might be the audience.
Yeah, the age group.
Age group, yeah. If I did this in my kids' school, I think that would be 100%.
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so what I was saying earlier is that any strategy that doesn't involve WhatsApp is actually missing something. So the richness of the functionality, the security, the pervasiveness, the convenience that it represents for both the recipient and the transmitter of information, WhatsApp has got to be central to whatever you decide to do on digital. And Instagram and Facebook, from the point of view of being able to reach customers, influence outcomes, put up a shop front, and advertising as well. On getting paid, what I've found is, let me give you some thoughts on like getting paid. So there are a couple of examples here of like point of sale terminals. Things like Yoko and Ikoka. These are not expensive. The ongoing transaction fees are very low. It avoids you the hassle of being able to handle cash, and becomes much more. It's a much safer medium to actually use. The ongoing transaction fees range anywhere between 2% and 4%. So it's not massively inconvenient, and is certainly a lot safer than using cash. On SnapScan, I've used this personally. So one of my sort of non-work responsibilities is that I'm the treasurer for the PTA for my kids' school. And I created a SnapScan account, which, although it's powered by Standard Bank, it's actually getting paid into an FNB account. And it's incredibly inconvenient. It's incredibly convenient. You go through a FICA process so that they know who you are. You provide ID and proof of identity. And then they'll give you a QR code which allows you to be able to get paid through the SnapScan app, where your customer puts their debit order card or their credit card information, and you can get the payment. What's really useful is that you can actually get the client, your customer's name as part of the transaction. So when they're paying you, they actually put their name, which means that you know who you're getting paid. Zapper works on on a very similar process. Also Zapper has the ability to be able to do vouchering. So if you wanted to be able to do incentives and create the ability for your customers to be able to get free samples or get discounts off, etc., Zapper does that for you very, very conveniently. So getting paid has never been easier. This is not a product push, but it would be remiss of me not to mention Discovery Pay. So Discovery Bank has this feature called Discovery Pay, where your contacts that are on Discovery Bank, their details appear, and you can actually pay them by just knowing their mobile number. You don't even need to ask for their bank details. So there's a little bit of a video clip over here, and you can actually see the names. Anybody that's on Discovery Pay on your contacts actually appears there with a little purple icon next to it, which means then that you can actually pay them without even having to ask for bank details. Banks and getting paid has never been easier as a business. Then any of the things that I've been talking about, it might sound overwhelming for you and for your staff. So I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about skills development and the categories around free online courses, things like Udemy, Coursera, EduConnect, Get Smarter, UCT Online. A lot of people like YouTube because of the cat videos and the cute things that dogs do, but you will be astonished by the amount of educational content and reference material that actually exists on YouTube as well. So I challenge you to actually search on anything that is business related and then see what actually comes up. Then there's digital skills, how to manage your social media, digital marketing and engagement strategies, and some of the content that I'll show you an example in a second. Traditional and functional vocational skills, leadership, financial management, a lot of technical content related stuff as well. These are free sources that are available to do it, and enabling digital skills, creativity, problem solving, teamwork and collaboration, adaptability and flexibility. What I've done here is just put a couple of screen grabs of content that relates to what I'm talking about now, that you would be able to access, educate yourself, and not have to pay for. So on Coursera, digital marketing, e-marketing, digital product management, digital transformation in financial services, and all of these are free course material that's available. The same thing with Udemy, financial management, win more as a business coach, budgets, cash flow, management accounting, the complete financial analyst course, and then UCT, digital marketing, operations management, MIT, Oxford through Said Business School. So this is all content that is readily available that allows you to be able to use the techniques that I'm referring to over here and educate yourself. Another secret about me is that even though I'm at Discovery and have the privilege of having a workstation provided by the company, my own personal stuff, I don't use any, I don't pay Microsoft for Microsoft Word or Excel or PowerPoint or anything like that. So all of my personal stuff is done through Google Docs. The ability to be able to write a document to my kids' school, keep a budget spreadsheet on Google Sheets, the ability to be able to do polls and surveys, the ability to be able to manage my contacts, etc. All of that stuff is actually done on free platforms like Google. You don't need to pay for these things. These things are leading. These things are world class, and give you the ability to be able to manage your client lists, manage how you interact with customers, set up order forms, run your budgets, run your businesses. Are all available through free platforms. Some examples of educational content that is available on YouTube: financial management and accounting for small and medium-sized enterprises, how to manage your finances for small businesses, money management for small businesses. All of this content is readily available. Let me ask another two final polls. Just to get a sense of whether this fantastic, rich source of content has been embraced by the audience. So have you ever taken an online course? So Coursera, Udemy, YouTube tutorials, any online courses? Have you participated in any of these?
I'm blown away at just how much incredible content is on Coursera, because I took a Harvard course in, I think, around the third month of the early lockdown, and it was absolutely free. I wanted to study a little bit more on neuroscience and what was happening in the brain. I could not believe they were offering such rich, simple content. You can even take most of the classes from your phone.
Yeah, I've been helping with coaching quite a few folk, and I thought I needed to understand a lot of the theoretical construct behind cognitive behavioral therapy and how your biases influence your thing. And yeah, brilliant material, accessible, relevant, on point, and current as well. So that's been incredibly useful. 76% of the audience have taken some kind of online course. So hopefully for the 24% of the audience, the 23 of you, you've got a sense of what might actually be possible right now, and use these resources to introduce new skills to you. And maybe the next question is actually relevant, which is, given what I've said about what's accessible to you, how do you train your staff? So the next survey is around how could you use these, or what resources are you using? So for example, you have no formal training program. It's on the job, so staff learn from other people doing the job. You send staff on formal courses or other. And again, you've got multiple that you can actually choose your. Probably might make more sense for this to be one only, but if you could just give us an indication of how you go about training your staff, and then we can see what the audience is doing.
It's a really great insight about free platforms like Google Docs. Thank you for that. This presentation is extremely practical. I want to, even while they're answering these questions, I just wanted to say that. Do you listen to Scott Barrett Kaufman's podcast?
No, I have not heard that.
Yeah, he speaks a lot about cognitive therapy, behavioral therapy. So if that's one of your interests, you could check that out.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Timothy. Appreciate it.
I have used a lot of YouTube courses to up my tennis game, I have to say. So I'm blown away. It's just unbelievable how the digital transformation around content. It's like the results are about to come in. There we go.
Okay, great. Thank you. So 17% of you, you don't have any formal training program. The majority of the training is done through on the job. So staff learn from other people doing the job. And 40% is sending staff on formal courses, and 27% on other. I think what this highlights is the opportunity. I promise you, no matter what business you're in, you will find content on one of the platforms that I've mentioned that will be aligned to your business. So it could be vocational training on YouTube. It could be management training on Coursera or Udemy. And I encourage you to have a look at the opportunity that actually exists in terms of using the resources. And all that's required is bandwidth, and then your staff member have got it, and then build in recognition programs around it.
Thank you so much.
Cool. And then the last point that I wanted to raise is really around your role in digitizing, in digital transformation, so these are the sort of most important leadership skills that you need to be able to succeed in the digital workplace. The first of all is vision. You need to have knowledge of markets, what your customers are expecting. How do you apply digital skills to your business? You don't do digital transformation for its own purpose. You're solving a business problem. It's reaching customers, getting payment, training your staff, being able to create awareness of your product line, and be able to lead your people in how to actually do that adoption. To do that, you need views yourself. So you need to be familiar with the terminology. You need to be familiar with how it'll be applicable to your business, and have your own views. Don't only rely on what the experts are saying. Be forward-looking, clear vision, sound strategy, foresight, how business trends are evolving and how you can adopt your business to do that. Understanding technology, either through digital literacy or your own experiences. You've got to build on stuff in order to be able to figure out how to adopt your own business. Be open-minded, adaptable, be pragmatic, focus on what's right for your business, and most importantly, be collaborative. In the case of some of us that are slightly older in the audience, you'll probably find that your staff have actually got fantastic ideas on how to actually do this adoption themselves, and dare I say, call in a teenager. You'll get great insight on how to actually transform your business to what might be appropriate. So practical next steps: figure out what your model is. How do you create value in your business? How do you bring your customers along with that? How do you bring your staff along with that? Get your client list together. You have nothing if you don't know who your customers are and how you're going to reach them. So use the tools that I've mentioned, any of the social platforms, create a spreadsheet on Google Docs, get your client list together and figure out how you're going to start engaging with them using this model, and figure out how to engage with your customers for mutual benefit. And as I said, do this for the right reasons, not for gratuitous reasons. I left out a large chunk of the presentation relating to how we've done it in Vitality, because I thought it was more important to actually focus on actually making this the practical part of the presentation. So if I can leave it there, and then maybe, I know we're over time, but maybe if I can ask if there's any questions or comments that anybody has.
Well, I will say, Joe, I mean, as we start to move to a close on this presentation, one of the questions we have here is, any thoughts on free CRM programs that you can recommend that are NPO friendly?
Timothy, I didn't look into that specifically. My guess is that there is definitely, they're going to need more than like drag and drop setup on Google Docs, but there are definitely mechanisms of being able to do CRM activities that I've used using Google Docs, polls, forms, etc. So yeah, it's a good question. I should have thought of that.
Okay, and someone says here Salesforce gives 10 free licenses to MPO. Okay, thank you so much for that.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So in terms of, I just actually Googled and searched while you were sharing. I have an assistant that I want to train to do presentations better, and I found 2 courses that came up for free. So that was very, very helpful. Thank you very much. I think that if there was anything, I mean, our session is designed to conclude in about 5-6 minutes because we want to launch a poll at the end. So we are on time relative to ending at 1:10 p.m. Okay. So if there's anything you'd like to extract from the part that you left out now, just in terms of us talking through it, you're welcome to do that now.
Let me, so maybe what I will do is focus on some of the things that we do in Vitality that involves the all embracing of digital transformation. Okay. And so maybe just a couple of thoughts on shared value in our world, and then how we use technology to embrace that.
Thanks, guys, again for your questions. These are really great questions. And I see there's a couple of questions that are still in there, but we've answered those throughout the conversation. So whoever is regulating the questions, we did answer those questions.
So in Vitality, I mean, you would have heard the term shared value, I've no doubt, given the prior presenters. So the basic principle behind Vitality is to improve our members' health through and result in excess funding, which we then use to fund rewards for members. So for members, the shared value that exists within Vitality is improving health, getting better value through improved pricing and benefits. That results in healthy behavior. The healthy behavior results in lower claims, higher margins, and more people coming to Discovery because they resonate with the brand of Vitality. That results in savings, which we then use to improve society through improving productivity, reduced healthcare burden, and create incentives for members. So that's the basic premise behind what Vitality actually does. We've got an incredibly rich ecosystem which actually supports that. So if I can go to the premise behind shared value is that there are 4 lifestyle conditions, which is like overeating, not enough exercise, smoking, etc., which results in cancers, heart disease, diabetes, etc., which results in 70% of morbidity, 70% of deaths worldwide. And that applies for both life insurance and health insurance. In the case of motor insurance, 5 driving behaviors, driving too fast, driving unsafe vehicles, and so forth, results in 3 driving conditions, which results in 60% of the fatal accidents. And the same dynamic exists with long-term savings and also with Discovery Bank, where unable to deal with financial shocks, the unsustainable and expensive debt, and not being able to provide for your retirement results in credit defaults. So if you're in the business of managing risk and you can influence these behaviors, this is absolutely foundational. So what this translates to in the shared value model inside Vitality is a program that is applicable to over 2 million South Africans, where we use behavioral economics and incentivize behavior to be able to make people healthier, so that we have this positive impact on society and result in improved retention of our customers. How that translates in in financial terms is, for example, in the case of life insurance, you earn your vitality status. It translates into reduction in claims. So blue members, bronze members, silver members, and gold members in South Africa, you can see that to the extent that you engage in the vitality program in South Africa and in the UK and in a sample international market that we've actually used, we have a positive impact on society. The reason why I put this slide up here is that you need to figure out what is your shared value. So when you're dealing with your customers, either as a retailer, as a service provider, as an educator, how are you aligning your activities and the way that you engage with your customers? Because it will result in improved customer persistence. Your customers will stick around longer. You might not make as much out of every particular transaction that you have with a particular customer, but you will certainly have longer relationships if you're sharing that value with them. It's commonly known, if you look at the lapse figures over there, is that our competitors know that once a vitality, once a discovery customer has made it to diamond status, our competitors know not to bother. That customer is so entrenched in discovery that the value that they're actually seeing basically means that they are out of reach from a point of view of being able to show a better deal than what you can actually get from discovery. And that applies in life insurance, and hopefully we can actually get that same effect out of short-term insurance and also on Discovery Bank. And then, so there are a number of positive benefits that come out of the Vitality program. I don't have time to get through all of these, but really what I wanted to be able to show is the impact that we actually have on day-to-day people's lives. So across the Discovery ecosystem, you have customers who wake up, they take their medication that's been funded by Discovery Health, they go to a gym which has been funded by Vitality, they do a workout, they can redeem a reward which is earned as a result of engagement in the Vitality program. They drive to work, obviously being tracked and being monitored through the telematics in their vehicle. They arrive at work, they buy a coffee at one of our partners, they leave work, go do shopping and pay with their Discovery card. And then they order dinner at Nando's through the Vitality Healthy Food Benefit. They watch a movie funded by Netflix in Vitality. They arrive at home. They watch a movie which is a Vitality partner. They leave Sandton City. Remember when we used to go to movies? Wow, that was like a bit of a flashback. I got there for a second. I hadn't looked at that word on the slide for a while. And then when you arrive at home and then you do some online shopping, again powered by a Discovery card, and go to sleep. All of these digital interactions is how we've embraced digital as part of the Discovery ecosystem. And all of these things are seamless. These people are not consciously interacting with Discovery. You're going about your life. And I think everybody likes to be in control of their own destiny. People want to be in control. So it's not like people resent the opportunity that it actually presents to be convenienced through digital.
Joe, thank you so much for this masterclass. You know, despite the fact that I'm a Vitality member, in fact, I don't think anybody on the team knows that. It's the first time I'm actually sharing this. But I love the definition, the practical definition of what Vitality means, even outside of Discovery, whether you're a member or not. It's the state of being strong and active. And I want to say to everyone who has been joining us on this mentorship process, every single conversation we've geared is to drive you towards being strong and active and healthy in your mind, in your body, your community, and in your business. And we want to thank you so much. Well, let's launch the poll now. I mean, you've answered questions, you've been fully engaging and transactional in your presentation, Joe. So thank you very much. Our questions are up. How satisfied were you with the event? If you've been here the full day, thank you very much. But how did you enjoy this specific event? Are you satisfied? Are you neutral on this? As a student of behavioral economics, I'll just share this while this poll is running. Having studied behavioral economics formally myself, I appreciate the desire to connect with people on an emotive and an unconscious level, to be able to drive change, to be able to live an active and stronger life. It's something that means a lot to me because we've got so many other priorities that it's not always, if I've got my phone and there's a notification saying, choose this, that's a very beautiful thing if it leads me to being active and stronger. Please rate the following aspects of the event: satisfied, very satisfied, neutral. We only have a couple more questions on this poll. We'll be wrapping up. We're really looking forward to tomorrow. We're going to be looking at harnessing human potential. For all of you who are coming back tomorrow, we look forward to engaging you. I have the great privilege of hosting a volunteer session tomorrow. And I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm excited about all of our sessions launching tomorrow morning, going to the afternoon. Would you recommend this event to other curious and engaged minds? While you're answering that, I want to thank everyone who has presented, everyone who's taken time, everyone working behind the scenes, all the tech team. I want to thank everyone who is unsung heroes, the people who are writing up briefs, scripting, working tirelessly throughout the night to make sure that this runs so smoothly. I want to thank everybody. And for everyone viewing, all the mentees, everyone engaging in these masterclasses, I hope this information moves you to action. I really hope genuinely that everything you've learned, you share it with someone else. And I'd like to inspire you to find someone, WhatsApp someone today. Since everyone is on WhatsApp them an insight that you've learned from this masterclass. I'm going to share with a couple of people in my ecosystem about Google Docs, what they can learn on Coursera, YouTube, so many really brilliant insights that have come from this presentation. I think this is the final question. Do you plan to attend another event in the future? Podcast is another incredible platform. I shared a podcast of one of my favorite cognitive behavioral podcasts with Joe here. If there are any podcasts that you'd like to share with us or any information you'd like to share with us as in the communication, in the question and answers, feel free to share what you're learning as well, because we all learn. And anything that you have that you feel it can contribute to us as well, we will make these notes in the Q&A section. We're happy to answer questions tomorrow. Thank you guys very much. It's an absolute privilege. Joe, all the best. Hope to see you around.
Timothy, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.